It's been nearly 10 years since that chilly morning in 2016 when Lafayette Township's own Bryon Macron vanished into thin air. His office smeared with blood, no vehicle, no note, nothing in sight that would indicate what had happened to Bryon. His vehicle was found miles away. Was it suicide? Nobody knew. Bryon then was discovered nearly a year later at Chippewa Lake, miles from the scene. And with the Nexus pipeline, with fire levies going on, angry township people, conspiracy theories went about. The police report said suicide, but nobody's really sure. And tonight, we have a guy here who's done hours and hours of research, hundreds of interviews, spewed over countless documents and pieces of evidence. And he's going to share with us what he thinks happened that night. So tonight, guys, welcome to the Guys Night Podcast.
Welcome to the night zone, hear the warriors speak. Life's the battlefield and we ain't feeling weak. From love to the game and the power we seek. Our voice is strong, breaking every peak. Talk of love and battle scars, everything that's real. From touchdown to sermon, you know the deal. Strength in every word we begin to reveal. Truth in every tale as our lives we unveil. Talk of love and battle scars, everything that's real. From touchdown to sermon, you know the deal. Strength in every word we begin to reveal. Truth in every tale as our lives we unveil. Protect and provide, we're knights in the fray. Nothing off limits, we got something to say. Life and love, fitness and fight all day. Guys Night Podcast, let's ride the wave. Politics and prayers, ain't no subject we shun. Keep it real, keep it raw till the battle's won. Fitness, tips to faith, every topic under the sun. With honor and valor, every man's battle begun. Warriors with word swords through the air. Every point sharp and every talk fair. Knights at the round table, come and pull up a chair. Join the brotherhood, words laid bare. Protect and provide, we're knights in the fray. Nothing off limits, we got something to say. Life and love, fitness and fight.
Is there like
all
music
day.
or something?
Guys Night Podcast.
Oh yeah.
So just so you know, I had told everybody I was going to stay dark until December, except another conspiracy came up last week. Again, the conspiracy of he was tied down in the lake.
Oh, yeah, I heard that too.
That's the reason why.
So I just did a ton of research on how a body could freeze in a lake sitting up, and it's actually happens all the time. Like your
With him like
clothes-
that?
Yeah, your clothes get weighed down, and then
His shoes pulled him down. He was an ice cube.
yeah,
Mhm.
crazy. All right, let's get this started. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the Guys Night Podcast. And if you enjoy conspiracies, murders, and everything in between, you're going to enjoy this podcast. Tonight, we were fortunate enough to come across George Starsky, who's writing a book on the disappearance of Bryon Macron and the eventually death of that trustee in Lafayette Township. If you've paid attention at all to local Medina County, you've seen dozens of conspiracy theories, from the Nexus pipeline was the reason, to the fire levy, to everything in between. And George, you're writing a book. First of all, welcome to the show, brother. How you doing?
Oh, very good. Thank you for having me.
And David, as always, to my left. How's it going, my guy?
What's happening, gentlemen?
You're a Lafayette Township resident, so you must
Yeah.
be thrilled about this.
Yeah, it was it was definitely one of those things that hit my radar like shortly after moving there, but I had so many other responsibilities and so many other things at the time that I didn't pay much attention to it until, of course, a lot of the stories started popping up, and then it sort of got interesting, and then it's kind of forgotten about until, again, rather recently here, there's been some new things coming up, which I know we're going to talk about that. I know they found a box of old files that was recent that hit the news and everything. And then, of course, we just had a Lafayette Township trustee on, and the topic came up during that over cameras that were, installed, maybe related somehow with an invoice to his parents' old house. And so there's definitely a lot of intriguing things to do with this story for sure.
Well, and with us being based locally, I'm glad you reached out to me, George, because frankly, this thing was, like I said to you before, this was so far off my spectrum. I've lived here essentially all my life, almost 30 years. I don't even remember when this happened. That's how like not involved in local news I was at all. And so when you came to me and you brought this up, I was like, I don't know if people would be interested in it, but you know what? I'm definitely interested having a guy who's going to be writing a book on something. And I posted it, and oh my God. My inbox has been stuffed with anything and everything that you can imagine, including, for those listening, the ex-chief who I know is doing his own YouTube channel. He's got a ton of information.
Infamous ex-chief.
Infamous, yes, infamous ex-chief. I did invite him to come actually and be a part of it because I knew there was going to be things that were going to come up that conspiracy theorists are going to be like, that's not true, and vice versa. It wasn't meant to be a debate. I'm more interested in the book that you're writing, the process that it takes to write that book, because when you're covering something like this, I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with Project Chaos. That guy was supposed to be writing a magazine article, and then 25 years later came out with a book. So let's start out with how you came to be involved in this and write a book at all.
Well, first, I just want to say I was going to go dark until mid-December because I've been working on a book, and I have a partial chapter coming out in December about the social media group. But another conspiracy popped up, which we'll talk about it. Well, how this came into being with me, there was a party at the Winking Lizard in Brunswick on the 15th of December, 2016. I was there, innocently sitting at the bar, watching a football game. Big football fan. You know, somewhere there's supposedly a picture of me holding a beer like this, watching the game. This party's going on behind. I had no clue. I wasn't paying attention. It's Christmas time. Just parties everywhere. So the next day, the story broke. Well, was it the next day? Saturday, the story broke, and it was on TV, and I'm going, Winking Lizard, I was there Thursday, and it was interesting. And I just watched it. I go, okay, some interest, but nothing major. 2 weeks later, I was at the Winking Lizard. I don't go in there anymore anyways. Silicone issues. I won't go there about that. But I ran into a deputy friend of mine from the Medina County Sheriff's Office. And I go, hey, dude, tell me, who whacked the guy? Because I'm going to tell you, it sounded like a murder.
Right.
And he turns around and looks at me. He said, oh, you're not going to believe this. He was not murdered. Most likely he took off. Major financial problems, credit card fraud, unconventional relationships, things like that. And he's going through this litany of issues. And I'm going, oh, okay. But the financial thing stuck in my mind. And when they found his body in February, first thing that goes through my mind, because of my background in mental health, I was a suicide. Well, of course, then the report came out undetermined, and I didn't pay much attention to it. And then all of a sudden, Linda Bowers was on TV saying, oh, we're being harassed. You know, they had to put something up there about Lafayette facts.
And Linda Bowers was the other trustee.
Was one of the other two trustees. And she got a noose sent to her house. And I go, Linda? And so I called her. Now, mind you, I had not talked to her in like 12 years. And the last time I talked to her we were both united that we didn't want Tom Miller as sheriff. We knew Tom he was arrogant, but not competent. And I said, what is going on? And then she's given me all this stuff that happened. So using Facebook espionage is what I've been accused of. I went on the Justice for Bryon Macron page, legitimately. And I started watching some of these comments, and my jaw was on the ground. And it's hard to shock somebody like me. And I'm looking, I go, what is this all about? And so I started to go, a book would be pretty good because of social media, weaponizing social media. And of course, I got sick. If you ever go in the hospital for routine back surgery, run for your frickin' life. Back surgery, blood clots almost killed me, found cancer. A year and a half after that, found cancer again. Just my opinion, run. Well, anyways, I started writing it, and it just kept going down different rabbit holes. And earlier this year, the unredacted files of the case opened up. And it was shocking, some of the things that were in it.
When you say opened up, the current sheriff released him, or is it open up after so much time?
My understanding is, according to the infamous police chief, is Victoria Macron herself signed off on privacy and said,
Okay.
let's open them all up because he wanted them. Why she did that with everything that's in there, she probably will regret. Well, probably will regret that because there were things in there she really shouldn't have wanted public. So,
Right.
and I grabbed onto it.
I mean, there's so much to, I don't even know where to start. Let's talk about before this even came to an idea, though. I know people that are probably listening to this are going to be like, oh, no, just get into it. But what did you do before this?
Oh, what have I been doing?
Yeah.
I've been doing
What was
a lot.
your career? Like what?
I was an insurance agent. I've also worked part-time as a casino dealer.
Okay.
Greatest job in the world. Oh, you see people at its worst, losing money and they're drinking a lot. Not a lot of fun. I'm going to tell you something. Somebody asked me, how do you win at gambling? I go, really easy. Take the money you're going to gamble, buy a mutual fund. Then you can make some money. You're not going to win.
Were you a local politician as well?
I was a city councilman back in the 80s.
Okay.
I've done a lot of things. I was active in the community for many years. The old JC's group I was active in. And because I dealt with some mental health issues 20-some years ago, I became a mental health advocate. So I learned how to do CIT programs for police departments. I gave speeches on mental health. In fact, locally, I've been to Cloverleaf High School, Buckeye High School, Brunswick I've been to. And for some reason, I think there's another one in there. I can't remember. So I've been all over speaking up until the pandemic. And the pandemic, of course, changed everything for everybody. I haven't done a program for police probably since 2019, CIT programs. But my original plan for a book was there was a police officer shot in Cleveland Heights, and I had some involvement in the after effects of that. Was Timothy Halton was a paranoid schizophrenic who murdered Jason West. And I used to spend a lot of time at the Cleveland Heights Police Academy. So I got involved with that. And originally I was going to do a book with the mother of the killer. She ended up going, well, she's going to go with her friend who's a doctor. So I go, okay. So it was just a timing of it where I ended up here. And then a year later, she came back and said, you still interested in that? This didn't work out. So, but I was too far along into this. I didn't want to go back to it.
Yeah, I don't blame you. All right. So where do we want to start with this?
Man, there's so much. Like,
let's sit here for days.
Let's start
and we have a lot of time.
Yeah,
and,
no
I'm in no hurry.
Okay, good.
Let's
Good.
start on two of the conspiracy theories are based around the Nexus pipeline, which runs through, for those from not in Ohio, it runs all the way through Northeast Ohio. Actually starts down south and runs up
Southern
through Michigan.
Ohio
I'm sorry.
Goes all the way to Canada.
Right. And then also at the same point in time, there was a fire levy that was up for vote, had failed, I believe, twice before. I think Justin shared that with us.
I can't remember if it was once or twice, but it did fail.
And that was regards to building the new fire station
Correct.
on the big chunk of property up the street and moving it away from that actual township area where it was at when the murder took place. I don't think it had been built at that point, right?
No, it hadn't been built.
So
Start with Nexus.
let's do that. Let's start with Nexus. Why was Nexus even considered as a reason for his death?
People with tinfoil on their heads had to come up with something. Matt Ray, I think the son of State Representative Sharon Ray, really, and he's spending. There's a lot in my book about him for many different reasons.
That's twice he's come up in our podcast now. He already messaged me once and was like, "Thanks for bringing my name up on your podcast." And I was
Tell him I said hi.
I don't even know who you are, bro. But now he's been mentioned twice, so now he's a guy's night.
I got his picture in the book too. That's going to be in comparison to another picture, and he's not. Some of the vile comments he's made over the years is just amazing.
That's the guy that approached Justin about the cameras or something like that, talking
Yeah,
about
it was.
invoices and things like that. Okay, all right. So
you know
Oh,
who
you
it is.
didn't tell me that he reached out.
yeah,
The guy from Wadsworth.
yeah.
That's him.
He sent me. I didn't even read all his messages. There's so many. pictures of invoices and stuff. And I was like, look, guys, I'm not here to dispute the facts of the case. I'm here to help a guy who's releasing a book, and I'm interested now in hearing the story. So
yeah, I mean, I would say this: we're all curious, and if you have information and evidence, by all means, share it. If you need a platform as massive as ours, I know, we're incredibly, our reach is far greater than any of the media outlets available in the rest of the state, probably this side of the country. So we're kind of a big deal.
I mean, if you're in Medina County and you haven't liked and subscribed already, you better do it quick.
I promise to do it. I promise.
I don't
have already though.
And I don't mean that in a chastising way, but like, I mean, if it's interesting, we want to know about it. If it's factual, we really want to know about it. Like that's kind of where we're at. But if it's for attention and clicks and views, well, that's our job, man. We're trying to get those views and clicks. So,
something tells me this one's going to get a lot of clicks for you.
So Matt Ray, you think is the one who started the Nexus
with the
pipeline?
Nexus, yeah. His mother had a personal vendetta against Linda Bowers. And the weird part is, back in the 80s, I met Linda Bowers through Sharon Ray. That'll tell you the weirdness of it. But the Nexus pipeline was a federal project. And of course, local governments have very little control, if any, on this. And it went through Linda's property. And of course, Matt Ray, she has a windfall and all this other stuff. And she had the power to move it there. You don't have any power over a federal project. Because what was she, a township trustee? And that's all, that's not a very powerful position. You're not going to call Donald Trump and ask him to move something.
Well, and the infamous chief, I watched his episode where he talked about that a little bit. And, he brings up the fact that while it was approved in 2015, there might have been alternative routes. But when a pipeline goes in, and I actually reached out to a couple of buddies that work in the pipeline, when there's a designed pipeline, in order to get them to consider the alternative route, like the reasons for it have to be like substantial. Yeah. Like you might go through an Indian burial ground type substantial, because they've optimized that route based off of more engineering than I could ever possibly imagine.
It's not only that, but it's also the legislative connections to it as well.
Yeah.
In that, and then the biggest thing is anything that has the word environment in it, and environmental impact study is part of that. Just a quick note on that. The pipeline is 256 miles long.
Correct.
How many miles long is Linda Bowers' property? I want to know that right now.
I can tell you less than a mile.
Okay, so let's say less than 1/256th of the overall length of this pipeline just happens to go through.
Probably more like 1/1000th of it would go through there. And there are other easements in Medina County, but she was the second largest landowner. And it's funny because she actually did the responsible thing. When this thing came up, she did enough research to know that you can't stop it. There were objections, and they did do a minor change. They pushed a little further away from Chippewa Lake. And that was really the only change. But she was concerned about if there was an accident, an emergency, how do you handle it? So she went to the, what's it called? I can never remember all these things, but EMA of Medina County, Emergency Management. And she recommended maybe we should make a pipeline commission to try to find out how do we train our firemen and everything. Well, the owner of the pipeline, Spectra, I think it was called. I always confuse them. They came up with grants. So all the townships got grants to train them. So no commission was ever formed. If you watch online like I did, they're like gophers digging for the minutes for this commission.
Right.
That doesn't exist. And part of me wanted to step up and say, here's what happened. But I go, it's kind of entertaining to watch these people dig, and they're not going to believe me anyway.
Right.
So.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that was the commission. There was no control. There was nothing. And as far as her negotiating, everybody along that route negotiated their easements, because if you don't, they would have taken eminent domain and moved quite quickly.
Correct.
So there was nothing nefarious about that.
Yeah, and the other aspect, if, for instance, it was in my neighborhood and my neighbor negotiated something and then I negotiated something better, like that's
That's smart business.
Right. That's just what happens. You know what I mean? So that's why usually the last person, well, not the last person, like the bottom third person wins.
So it was no secret that this pipeline was going to go through her property. She didn't conceal it. She didn't hide
No,
from
she never
it.
hid anything.
She's not a billionaire.
No, she's not a billionaire. She doesn't get invited to the White House with Donald Trump, but she is active in politics, though.
So even if it did go through her property, and even if somehow she had the power to say, hey, put it through my property, so what, I get an extra few bucks. What does that have to do with, the conspiracy that had anything to do with Bryon disappearing?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. It gets even better because they're claiming that Bryon was killed because he was against the pipeline, and there was going to be this critical vote. There's a group that was called the Invisible Ships, and that was it gives you a headache watching them. They were pushing all these conspiracies, and if you listen to them, that was one of the big things because it was going to be Bryon was going to be the only one opposed to the pipeline, and this critical vote was going to take place a couple days after he was disappeared. There was no vote.
Yeah, it was approved before 2016.
Well, they had nothing to vote on. You don't vote on locally. And here's the best part. All three trustees signed letters against the pipeline. And they're public records with FERC. They could go out and get them. And I've seen Linda's. I've seen Mike Costello's. Of course, I haven't seen Bryon's. But one thing I do have is an email Bryon had sent to a constituent because he carbon copied Linda Bowers. And it basically said, we have no control over this. We cannot stop this pipeline from coming in. So everything was spelled out for everybody, but they're still, like I said, they're like gophers digging down, looking for something that's not there.
Sure. So for those listening, unfortunately, we're just a few minutes in and Nexus is rolled out.
First conspiracy done.
I mean, it's funny because coming from myself who, like I said, did not pay any attention to this, had until the last 3 days, really no involvement or research on this. It's easy to be like, oh man, that is about when the Nexus pipeline went in. Dang, did that really happen? But then you don't even, just a quick search on what's involved in approving a pipeline through a state or anything like that. And you quickly realize like, okay, well, first of all, how many townships did it go through along the way?
I used to know the number, but now I can't remember.
Did somebody disappear in each of those townships? No. Can they even stop it? No. What can stop it? Oh, basically an act of Congress. Like, how many millions would you have, or billions would you have to fight it? It's ridiculous. Like, so to me, I was like, well, I couldn't buy any part of the Nexus pipeline originally. So I that was where I kind of laid off on it. But I am always open to hearing like, okay, I mean, this goes back to that one Rogan podcast where, up until what's it called, COVID, I didn't believe any conspiracy theories. Now everything can be possible.
You never know.
So the other thing was the fire levy.
Okay.
Right. So where does that get into it? Was Bryon was he the deciding vote?
If you listen to the conspiracy theorists, definitely. If you go back and check the records on everything, no. And here's what happened. It failed in August. The firemen went, we want to try again. And Linda Bowers and I think Michael Costello, Bryon may not even been at the meeting. He was missing many meetings towards the end. And they told the firemen, you get the signatures, we'll put it on the ballot. Because it costs money to put it on a ballot. And it's a small community. So they get the signatures, they put it on the ballot. The vote to put it on the ballot was 2-0. Mike Costello, Linda Bowers, yes. Bryon Macron wasn't there. Then it came time, they had to fund a committee. Bryon Macron, Linda Bowers gave, I can't remember if it was 1,000 each or 1,000 total. And they basically funded the campaign. You need leaflets and signs.
Right.
Nothing from Bryon Macron.
Right. Mike Costello and
Linda Bowers.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then they had all the leaflets to pass out. Everybody was assigned a certain area. Bryon Macron was given his neighborhood. Okay. When they found his car on December 16th, the leaflets were still in the car a month after the election. So that kind of tells you whether he was involved with it. I think he was playing both sides of it.
So just to pause there real quick. So you said that obviously from the point of when he was missing, he was literally missing meetings, but how many meetings had he missed before that?
It's hard to say because they have special meetings, but I would say about a third, if I recall right. But you have special meetings. Like they had a meeting with the commissioners because they had to get the land for the fire station.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't show up at that meeting. Does that count as a missed meeting? I couldn't tell you. It depends on how formal it is. He was constantly doing that, and he once disappeared for an entire month.
So because they generally will meet once a month, like we just learned this, so they'd meet once a month, and then they would have special meetings, and let's say that that's once a month, so that's twice a month. So you're saying in the year before he disappeared, he may have been gone
a third of them, approximately.
So which would be, a total of 4 months, right?
Close to it, yeah.
It's almost like every other month he'd be gone.
He actually disappeared for a month. They couldn't find him, which was kind of strange too.
Yeah, in today's world, this was yesterday's world, which is still pretty close to today's world. We still had, share my location and all of that stuff. But so any knowledge or any theories of where he would disappear to, like gambling problems?
No, he was having some unconventional relationships with men. There was no question about that. The Medina County Sheriff's Department discovered that early on when he disappeared, and Bureau of Criminal Investigations they were also looking into that too.
So when we say that's where he was disappearing, like leaving the state during those times, and we're assuming
we don't know.
We don't know.
Nobody seems to know, and there were a lot of bizarre things. There was after he disappeared.
And hold on, before we get into that, the other thing is you say that there's some obvious, there's evidence to show that he had these relationships, because I heard a couple saying that the police had released the phone footage, photos on his phone were released, but there might have been one or two that were questionable or something.
No, there were more than that.
But then I heard there was speculation that there could have been hundreds of
There were a lot more than that. And it was, one of them called in and talked to Jim Cartwright. I can't remember if it was Cartwright or somebody else, but they called in. And there were other things leading up to that. The detectives were talking to Linda Bowers and Mike Costello all along. And they kept asking them, are you aware of any time where Bryon may have left town with a man or anything else, any unconventional thing? And they were starting to piece it together. And when they met with David Sentner, they said, and they brought it up. And all David Sentner would say is, it's still under investigation.
Gotcha.
But everything that was discovered, Jim Cartwright, when he was being questioned by Bureau of Criminal Investigations, he made a mistake and confused Mike Costello with Bryon Macron. And that's where some of it came in, but there's no question about that. I don't know what they mean by unconventional, but
yeah. You can figure it out.
There was a weird one where Detective Cartwright went up to Mike Costello. He goes, do you have approximate idea when Bryon left town? And he goes, yeah. He goes, okay, write down when he left town. He did. He goes, and where he told you he was going to be. And he wrote that down too. And Detective Cartwright goes, well, the dates are close. The locations aren't. He would tell people he was in one area and he'd be in a different area.
Gotcha.
So he was obviously gone, absent. We'll say he was AWOL. He was a Marine. We can call him AWOL, right?
Yep.
Same thing. Absent without leave, and then unaccounted for. Obviously, the meetings are public record. So
so anybody can look that up and find that.
Yeah,
out.
and his wife would know if he was gone for periods of time, or the kids would know if he wasn't around. So assume that information is all out there, whether it was gambling, drugs, men, other women, Pokemon Go. maybe he got led away by the Chinese, but he was gone for a lot of periods of
Many
time.
conspiracies on it.
And this all goes back to the second conspiracy, right? Is the fire levy?
Yeah.
So he's gone during a majority of these votes, which are
all of them.
All of the key votes, which are being voted on 2-0. So his vote's really irrelevant.
It was irrelevant. But
one could almost say that maybe. I don't know him. I don't know the scenario at that point in time, but that's almost like what do they call it when you just don't vote?
Absentee vote
when you
now I can't remember it and I should know that.
Yeah, but essentially it's like, well, I don't want to vote against it even though that's what I should do for my constituents, maybe. So I just was staying.
Abstinent vote.
For staying.
Yeah, he wanted to play
Abstinent
both sides
vote.
of it, most likely.
No, that's a vote. I'm talking about
Abstinent
when you
vote
choose
is-
not to vote.
That's what abstinence is.
Oh, really?
You choose to vote by not voting. It's
That was
called
another word I thought, but either way,
Yeah.
I mean, so I mean, one could say like his vote really was irrelevant because they were voting in favor of and his one vote wasn't going to do anything.
And we're pretty sure that he was playing both sides, telling the farmers who would pay a big chunk of money because property tax levies hurt the property owners
Right.
the most. And he was telling the firemen he was voting for them. That's pretty much what the conclusion we came up with.
Do you know when the flyers and things were produced?
Produced
Yeah, like when did they start the flyering and the campaigning for the actual?
would have been mid-October.
Okay.
I couldn't give you the exact.
Because you
date.
mentioned that they found all the flyers in his vehicle
in December.
In December, so basically so he never did anything with them. Probably never
No.
talked to anybody about it or anything. So that does raise a question. Either was he off by his own decisions? Was he lured away? Was he forced away? Like, I guess there's still some question there, right?
No.
Well, you
prior
say,
to
you say no. Well, there's no question that he was gone, but
You're
why
talking
was he
about
gone?
December 16th when he disappeared.
No, I'm talking about for all the meetings that he missed and where he was.
They never figured it out.
Yeah.
They tried. They contacted a couple of the men that he had some unconventional relationships with. And the one, I don't know if it was one of them or a different man. He had told him he was going to come up there on the 18th. And he never showed up, and that's how he called in. But why he was missing, he claimed he was there, he was out for business. Law enforcement doubts it.
Right.
Because he wasn't a high-end diamond salesman. His income wasn't that high.
I was about to ask what his day job was.
Yeah, he was a diamond salesman, but the income was not that high. And his brother, Darren Macron, when he was interviewed, even said they lived beyond their means. They didn't make the money for their lifestyle, which is why that credit card ended up $57,000. So there's so many weird things like that.
And just a quick note to our LGBTQ plus community, all three of you watching, we're going to continue using that unconventional relationship. We're just being respectful of the deceased here. So we know that, like, you know, the blue hairs are like, what do you mean unconventional? Just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's unconventional. We're just remaining respectful of the man here as we're talking about him.
There was another incident he had with that. He was supposed to be back for a meeting, and he called Michael Costello and said, "Hey, I'm going to be late." He goes, "Why?" He goes, I think he said he was in Miami. He says, "I jumped on a plane to Cleveland, but I accidentally got on a plane to L.A."
Yeah,
I'm
because
like,
that's possible.
Oh, that's going to happen every day.
Yeah, that's completely possible.
And he made a mistake. He talked to
Flashback to
Michael
the 90s.
Costello. Well, Michael's a pilot, not for a major, but he understands that. And he's like, that seemed very strange. But he would say things like that would throw people for a loop.
So essentially, what do you think drove to the fire levy? Now, where do the firemen stand on this?
Well, they
'Cause
were,
from what I understand, some of them still think it's murder.
most of the firemen who were involved back then are gone. You have to remember, they're only hearing the one side of the story. Mike and Linda, since the conclusion, and it was out of respect for the Macron family, remained silent. I think it was a mistake. Now, back then, I kind of thought, well, I understand that. But it allowed these rumors to go on. Everybody that was in the boat, I shouldn't say rescue boat, but the recovery boat and the guy in the water have all said it was he was found the way he was. There was no conspiracy. The wounds are consistent with self-inflicted. There was only one deep wound.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We got to get people to stick around for at least another 30 minutes or so.
Okay, but the firemen, I'm sure there's some that believe it. I mean, the only people that you can actually look at, every law enforcement individual who had their hands on the case adamantly say it was not a homicide. And that includes the Bureau of Criminal Investigation. And they've seen a lot of crimes like this. And nobody calls it a murder. Nobody.
Sorry, guys.
That's okay.
All right, so we've kind of talked about the two major conspiracy theories, and what was going on, and it appears that neither of those would be the reason for his disappearance, at least specifically for the other two trustees, right?
Correct.
If you're the conspiracy that a trustee is involved in the murder of another trustee, you would expect that to have something to do with a financial benefit to that trustee or something that case, or blocking something, et cetera, for their constituents, et cetera, right?
Yeah, and there's no
that's how it's in the movies.
Then you know it's legit. Well, and there's no financial benefit to any trustee unless they live in the township to the success of the levee and the building of the emergency services building. Like it's not like they get a commission off of that or anything at all. Like it doesn't work that way, as we just, discussed at length the other day. Right. So that, the benefit would be, okay, we got a new fire station, like just like everybody else. I got the same benefit. Well, you didn't, but I did because I lived there and my neighbors got it.
I get to eat pancakes there in the spring.
I've been to that pancake breakfast a couple times.
They do it right.
I don't know if I'll be allowed to go after this. But
all right. So for those that are still listening, please subscribe, listen, like,
share it too.
And share the podcast. Those were two of the big conspiracy theories that I had heard throughout this process. Let's actually go back to what the actual crime was, right? So, you mentioned the night before or 2 nights before, you were actually at a party that he was at.
Well, no, I was at the restaurant
the same place, right?
I was sitting at the bar watching football. They were behind me.
Bryon was at this party, and I'm just gonna go over what I just recently at this party. He was mentioning to a couple of people that he had been kind of threatened by an angry town resident, and that was leading to him deciding to have an 8 a.m. meeting with this angry resident.
Correct.
Whose name was never mentioned to any of the people that he had an angry resident. Nobody. Part of his story was that he was also having the town sheriff or deputy.
That was Sergeant James Sanford.
Was going to be the officer. He was going to come and be there at the same point in time. But he was going to hide in the closet while they met. Hold that thought. He was going to hide in the closet, and the other trustee, Mike Costello, was going to also meet him there.
Yeah, 8 o'clock meeting, I believe.
Right, it was for an 8 a.m. meeting. Spoiled by the fact that the maintenance guy that goes and cleans the building and everything, he shows up at 7:02 because 7 o'clock. His job, he was going to move the truck out of the garage so the sheriff could park his car there. This is the whole plan that Bryon had set up with these other folks.
Correct.
Fast forward to Saturday morning, the maintenance guy shows up at, I think he said 7:02 or 7:12 or whatever it was. He shows up to Bryon's office and seeing blood spattered across the walls on the floor.
Wiped across the walls.
Yeah, like just literally right. And I think he said at that point he actually described going into, he's like, I kind of peeked in the office. He thought that Bryon actually blew himself away.
His first thought was the silly.
Yeah, blew himself away. And he said because he's been weird for a couple of months. He said he was really out of his mind. Like just didn't seem. He seemed like he was in a dark place.
He said that in his interview.
Yeah, in his interview.
In fact, he said that Bryon had a dark side, is what he said, and I don't think he realized what he hit on. It was pretty accurate on that.
And then he said, but the night before, he said he was chipper and in this great mood at the party. He's like, it was really weird. It was like too good of a mood.
They called it manic. They called him manic for that. Yeah. So
he shows up in the morning, he finds the blood, calls the sheriff, the same sheriff that was supposed to actually be there.
Deputy, yeah.
Or sergeant. And he's like, I'll be there, but he wasn't supposed to be. He wasn't on his way there or anything else. The whole idea of the sheriff meeting him there was completely made up by Bryon. And then he says he calls, I think, Kim, who's like the recorder or something.
Kim Buell.
Okay. And she doesn't know anything about where he's at or anything. And then that's when he calls Mike Costello.
And Mike went up there, and Mike
was supposed to have already been up there.
No, not yet. He wasn't due there till 7:45.
Okay.
And that's why he was awake. And he went up there, and he had his gun with him, and they thought Bryon was injured. So they went in there. Hindsight, should they have done that? Well, they didn't know if Bryon was in there or not.
Who went in there?
Mike Costello went in. I think he went in with Rick Evans, and they walked around see if they can find Bryon.
Okay.
So I'm sure this was asked at one point, but why wouldn't the maintenance guy immediately call the police when he walked in?
He called right after that. They were all kind of shocked. You know, you walk into something like that, and it's like, what the hell happened? And while I think he called the sheriff right around 7:20.
But so he
Not sure.
called him directly. He didn't like pick it. He just didn't take the phone and call 911.
No, they have a direct number that goes past there. So there was nothing nefarious about that, but he caught some heat for that. And
well, yeah, I
Sanford-
mean that's a pretty big determination. Like, so if somebody breaks into my house and I shoot them and I call Will first and I say, dude, you're not going to believe this. I just shot and killed a guy. What do I do?
well,
And then you know, 35, 40 minutes later, I then call 911 and say, somebody broke in my house. I shot and killed them. What do I do? Like,
yeah, but I get that. But at this point in time, I believe, remember how we talked with Justin? Now the Medina police are contracted.
rather than the sheriff.
At that point, it was the sheriff.
It doesn't matter who. I'm
get-
saying 911 is the easiest number to remember when you walk into a crime scene. You see blood everywhere.
I
right?
get that. I can foresee it. Like, I mean, I could call 911, but I could also just call the Montville Township.
Let me frame it up a different way. Former law enforcement, by the way.
Okay.
If I come home and there's a crime scene, well, when I was working, I'm not picking up the phone and calling my supervisor. I'm picking up the phone and calling 911 directly. Like that's your immediate. So I don't know. I'm sure that had to have been explored in this process somewhere.
What it was is they've called that number directly because they have a direct number from Lafayette Township to the sheriff's department. I think it was just more out of habit he did it. It had the same response because Jim Sanford showed up. What's going on? They told him. He sealed off the building with his car. He didn't let anybody in there, and he called for backup. And so I really don't think anything there was done improperly. I know there was arguments whether he should have dialed 911, but I think it was more out of habit dialing that one number because they do it all the time.
And then the other aspect of it is, and I thought about this as well, because I did think, I was like, why didn't he call 911? I was like, well, I guess government employee, they probably work with them all the time since they're contracted with them. I guess he call and direct the sheriff number directly.
Yeah,
I get it doesn't matter. I'm just saying I could see that.
It's also weird that was he the first on scene? Do we know?
Sanford, yes.
Does he live the closest?
He was on duty. And he was pretty close. I forgot he was at some.
He was actually on Lance Road, I think.
Yeah, I don't remember where he ended up.
I'm not making that up.
I don't know where Lance
I feel like
Road
I heard
is.
that today.
Well, I don't want to dox the guy, but
And he was there immediately. Within a couple minutes.
But so anyhow, my first thought when I 911, right? But there was no body or anything. Like he talked about the scene. He's like the guy's not frantic at all when he's talking. The maintenance guy, Rick, he's like, I mean, I walked in. At first he says I usually unlock the deadbolt first. It was already unlocked. Then I usually unlock the bottom door, and it was already unlocked. And the only reason he went there first was because the light was on in the conference room, which it's never on. So he goes in that way, and everything's unlocked. He walks in. The door's like half cocked open. He goes to open it up, and he sees I guess. And I haven't looked at the pictures, but if you come at the door, the crime scene was basically to the right, is the way he made it sound. And there's the chair, and he's like, you can see the blood there. And he goes, honestly, I thought Bryon was behind the door, so I kind of pushed the door and it just opened up, so he wasn't there. And he's like, that's when I called. But he was there was nobody there. I guess at that point you're like, well, it looks like a crime scene, but fuck, whose blood is on the wall?
Right. Yeah.
They knew Bryon was going to be there. I think that's one of the reasons why they assumed it was him. And you shouldn't assume, but I think that's why.
Yeah.
But Rick Evans, from what I understand,
but they're super early. I mean, for
Rick
an 8
Evans is
a.m.
there
meeting
all the time.
No, I'm talking about for Bryon. If he's there for an 8 a.m. meeting, he's there. I mean, he's probably had to be there at least 6:30.
He was there at 1:50 a.m.
What?
He got there at 1:50 a.m. And nobody has any clue why. They've never been able to determine what he was doing there because the crime scene wasn't going to take that much time to set.
Yeah.
And all he do is speculate because the one cut in his neck probably was very painful.
Well, let's wait for that one.
Yeah, we'll go into that later.
Where do we know where he was prior to that? Was he home and then went there, or was he?
He came home from the movie.
Went to a movie that night with his family, or
no, with Mike Costello. And he was supposed to go with his wife. And he came up with this thing that his phone had died. And in the inventory, he had a charger in his car, but they went to the Medina Theater on, was that Pearl Road or whatever it is? I think the name of the street changes. But they went to the movie, got out a little after midnight. He went home. Supposedly they made lunch for the kids the next day, went to bed. Victoria said he got up in the middle of the night, went downstairs to the couch. That's the last time she saw him.
Interesting. So he shows up at the police or the township hall.
150.
150. And how do we know that?
Well, they have a video of a car that looks like his going in there. And of course, that's the conspiracy.
What
Well,
kind
how
of
do
car
you
does
know
he
it's him?
drive?
He had an SUV.
We don't know what kind though.
Yeah,
Equinox.
that's what it was.
Equinox.
Chevy Equinox.
Good thing it popped into my head.
Yeah.
And the car pulls in there. And later that morning, a second car pulled to the end. I don't know if you're familiar with that parking lot, just to the end for a few minutes and took off. And of course, that's another conspiracy that was connected to it. And then his car pulls out around 6:30, and everybody's saying, "Well, how do you know it's him?" Because the only blood DNA is his,
Right?
And in his vehicle, so it was pretty obvious it was him. But nobody can figure out what he was doing in there the entire time.
Wow. And
No,
so how did they? Oh, sorry. How did they get a video of the car pulling in but not pulling out?
Yeah,
They did
same
get
thing.
one pulling out.
No, him pulling out. So they see his car.
Video pull out and go towards Chippewa Lake. Yeah.
Oh, they do see his vehicle pull out, but there's no cameras that see the actual car parked in the parking lot, him walking to it or from it. or
No,
anything.
the cameras that were at the fire station are pointed inside at the bay. And they were just put in a few weeks before. And the cameras, of course, another conspiracy. And so there was nothing like that. And so they didn't have any video of that.
There were no cameras at the township, in the township building itself
No.
at that time.
They were thinking about doing it. And when they were debating when they were going to buy the cameras for the fire station, Bryon was adamant that they don't get them for the
Wait a minute, for the township? Is
For that hall.
Is that documented somewhere?
No, because it's done in a executive session because it's a security issue. But I could never understand why they didn't put them in that building.
And then
either.
when they finally did install them, did the invoices for those get sent to Justin Paroli's parents' old
No,
house?
they did not.
Okay,
It
just
was
making sure.
Justin Paroli's old house because they sold it 5 years before. Whoever doctored those documents wasn't very smart.
Wait,
but-
so that was the other thing I was going to ask because I knew Justin's brother when I went to school. I mean, I haven't talked to him in 20 years, but they didn't live in that house they don't still live in that house. When did they did sell that house?
2011.
So they did sell it 5 years prior to that. So they are doctored. And it's funny how they would why would you doctor it to set somebody up? I don't see a motive. Well, we can get, that's a different subject.
Attention.
That
Yeah,
and some
attention.
tinfoil on the heads
Yeah.
too.
All right. So he comes in, Rick comes in, he calls everybody shows up, the sheriff's there, they rope up the scene, no body. When does the car get discovered?
It was discovered by OnStar somewhere after 9:00. I want to say 9:30. And when they got there, of course, the keys were locked in it. The only blood in it was on the driver's side, which turned out to be only Bryon. And that's when they found it. But that's where the critical errors were made about within the next 24 hours.
So we're going to get to that. Is there something about the OnStar that is suspicious?
I didn't think there was anything suspicious.
No, I wasn't sure if somebody said that it was turned off and then it turned on or something of that nature, but I might have missed
Nobody's ever talked about that. But the one thing that was suspicious, I mentioned how Bryon said his cell phone died and he couldn't call his wife.
the night before.
Yeah. It was never turned off. According to law enforcement, I guess they can check it when it was on the whole time.
So it wasn't dead when he went to the movies?
You
He
can
just-
tell from the ping reports because
That's
once
what it
it's
was, yeah.
once it's on, it will stop, or once it's off, it'll stop pinging. So that's pretty easy to determine that and see where it goes. And I think if there's any inconsistency of his cell phone's pings versus the OnStar pings, which both work on the same system, same towers and everything, just different networks. But
Yeah.
should be consistent.
right, if for instance, if they were separated, so then he was placed somewhere else with his phone, and and then the car went somewhere else with someone else, that would have obviously come
Well,
out
his
already.
phone was left at the hall. He took the car, no phone. when he went to the Chippewa Lake. The phone was left behind.
When he got to Chippewa Lake, we don't know if he drove there or not, but
Yeah, well, so he showed up on someone's camera there.
They did show
some
up.
point at like 9 in the morning or something.
No, sooner than that.
Sooner than that.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was early. There's a grainy video, and the infamous chief. And I got nothing against Scott. I mean, it's all good.
you guys probably all know each other at this point.
I've never met him, but I've talked to him.
Okay.
Texting back and forth. Hey, he's okay. We have mutual friends because I spent a lot of time at the Cleveland Heights Police Academy, and he worked in East Cleveland. But it was grainy video that showed Bryon walking down the street by itself. Probably wouldn't say it was him. The problem is the timeline fit when his car would have been in the beachside parking lot. And when they were watching the video, all of a sudden a woman goes jogging by 6:30 in the morning. And a few people have said, oh, who jogs in 5-degree weather? I'm an ex-triathlete. Yeah, I ran in 2 below zero in my life.
Runners are fucking insane.
We were nuts. I am. If it wasn't for my knee, even though I've had 2 back surgeries and 7 knee surgeries besides, I'd be out jogging.
Yeah.
So it was nothing unusual. So they see this woman jogging. So David Sentner, who was at the time captain, and somebody from BCI in financial crimes, and remember the financial crimes, because they were involved in the case, sat out at 5:30 in the morning for almost a week. And all of a sudden, a group of women go by and they stopped them. Do you know anything about this? Because we had a jogger go by. They knew who the jogger was, and that's how they made contact. Now, did she give a perfect description? No. But she said that he wasn't dressed for the weather. And what she described, everything was pretty much the same, except he didn't have a hoodie. He just had a sweatshirt. And I think most people call sweatshirts hoodies now. And so when you put those together, the time, everything else, it was Bryon. I'm pretty confident it was.
So that's interesting because I did hear that his wife was like, Bryon doesn't even own a hoodie. And I mean, at 5:30 in the morning, it's not daylight.
No.
This is cold winter time. It's dark.
It was
should be
still
pitch
dark. Yeah. It was actually 6:30, but it wasn't. It was still dark, and she's jogging. Would I have noticed somebody dressed improperly for the weather in that kind of? Yeah, I probably
I would
would
have noticed that.
I
yeah.
would have noticed that, because even as a jogger, you know how to dress.
Yeah.
And
Well,
he
and
wasn't.
you're out at that time in the morning too. Like that's not a time that people are just out strolling. Those are highly
No.
motivated people that are awake and in public and going anywhere, or they're left over from the night before, maybe like so that they
I've
would
done that.
stand out.
All right.
Right.
So for those paying attention, so 7 a.m. is when there's a crime scene
discovered.
discovered at the Lafayette Township. Can't find him anywhere. 9 o'clock that morning is when they find the car.
Somewhere
in
around
there.
that time they found it.
And they find the car miles away. It's probably about 10, 12 miles to
No, not
Chippewa
quite that
Lake.
far. Not quite that far.
No,
3 or 4, I believe.
To Chippewa Lake.
It wasn't that far.
it's not that far.
All right, so we'll call it 3 to 5
Or
miles.
tell you
And
right now.
cars discovered in a parking lot, parked appropriately, not like all swung in there. Or is
No, he just pulled in and stopped rather than he turned into a parking spot. That's why it stood out when the jogger went by. It was just kind of strange for her to see the car the way it was.
Gotcha. So car shows up there. Now, obviously, what time does it get called in? You said 9 o'clock ish.
Somewhere around there.
Does somebody call it in, or who calls it in?
OnStar. And then they
That's
said,
right,
we
I'm sorry.
found it. And Linda Bowers relayed to me during one of her interviews when she
3.9
heard
miles, by the way.
address.
3.9 miles, yeah.
Yeah, I was right. We were close.
Yeah.
She heard the address and she thought the car was in the lake. That's the address they use for the lake. And so there was a little bit of chaos going on there. And I really think he wanted to be found, so because of the other 2 firemen. But that's where they found everything.
All right. So obviously now everybody knows that that's the new crime scene or potential crime scene because there's a
Right.
car there. Medina Sheriff still over the case at that point?
They were, well, it depends where at the crime scene, they called in BCI right away because BCI did all the investigation at the scene. Contrary to what a lot of people are saying, why did the sheriff do it? It was BCI. There were a couple trucks there. You know what their evidence trucks look like.
What's BCI for those
Bureau
listening?
of Criminal Investigations. They work directly for the Attorney General's office.
Okay. And why would they be called in?
They're
versus
experts at crime scene analysis. And they had somebody there with blood who understood blood.
And there's also very few homicides that have ever occurred in Medina County. Very
and,
few.
and that's what I was trying to get at. I mean,
Yeah.
this doesn't happen often. So,
No.
I mean, it's not long before the sheriff's like, let's get an expert in here right now. I mean,
We cannot find records of a homicide in Lafayette Township dating back to 1960. So,
all right. So BCI is on the case. What happens next?
okay,
And
BCI.
you know what? Hold on a second. This is that morning. So go ahead. What happens next? I'm sorry.
Okay, the next step after that, they sealed off the car, took it in for BCI to process it at the at some garage. I think I don't recall where that was, and everybody else is still in a panic. Where's Bryon? Where's Bryon? And they couldn't. Of course, nobody had any idea. His brother. I was told his brother was questioned by one of the officers, but I can't find a record of it.
Okay.
And kind of hard to determine. And when I talked to Detective Cartwright, he remembers it, but he doesn't remember much of the conversation because Darren Macron lived outside of Columbus. He drove up with
That
one
morning?
of Bryan's daughters. Yeah, because he
Oh,
was
okay.
told. And the police went to Bryan's house after Victoria came home from the courthouse. Linda Bowers went with them. And of course, that's turning out to be another conspiracy.
Hold on a second. Where was the wife at prior to all this?
She worked at the courthouse.
This is Saturday morning.
No, it's Friday morning.
Oh, it's a Friday.
Friday
I'm sorry.
morning.
Okay, I thought it was Saturday morning. So she was at the courthouse working when all this was happening.
Yeah.
In Medina.
Yeah, and Linda Bowers went with the officer to go to the house because they wanted to know what was going on. Now, Bryon had been bragging about all these guns he owned. He owned one. He said he had 3 AR-15s. I mean, all kinds of things. And pretty much, if you listen to everybody, what he was telling them, he had an arsenal in that house. So when they walked in, Linda said, "It's Bryon's gun here," because she knew Bryon pretty well. And Victoria said, "We don't have any guns." And Linda was telling me during one of the interviews, she tapped the cop on the shoulder. "Let's go outside." Goes, "Just for shits and giggles. Call up and find out if Bryon's CCW is active," because he used to brag about having it. He never had one. So all of a sudden, all these red flags are starting to pull up. Then they didn't have the passwords to Bryon's computer and things like that started going on. And so all of a sudden, a mystery started taking shape. And I think around 10:30, if I recall right, one of the officers sat down with Victoria Macron and interviewed her. And there were red flags coming out of that. I mean, during that interview, she said, and this caught the detective.
Now, have you physically listened to these interviews?
Oh, I watched them. It was a
Yeah.
video. And she said, well, Bryon was in Houston and he came home early because there were a bunch of Indians there, people of Indian descent, and he doesn't like Indians. And I'm going, she really said that?
She literally says that in the interview?
In the interview, that's exactly what she said. And it just, okay.
Right.
And so there were a few things that she said like that, which were setting off some alarms in my head about it. And they almost there were a group of people already over their house. I think Bryon's father was there by that time. And it was just a strange interview. And when the officer went back to talk to Jim Cartwright, they were a little confused about it. I mean, you're a police officer. Red flags go up. You would notice it faster than anybody else would. And some of her comments didn't really resonate with me until it was explained. And it was about an hour and a half interview, I believe. And she made claims later on that, well, the sheriff's department never talked to me. They interviewed her 3 times in the first 4 days. Then she lawyered up, which was a little strange too. The only person who ever lawyered up during all this was Victoria Macron.
Really?
And that was not unnoticed by law enforcement.
Who was her attorney?
I know eventually it was Richard Lilly, who was a criminal defense attorney, but I don't recall who. I think she had a different attorney at the beginning.
Not who we're hoping it would be.
Yeah.
Don't say his name.
That would have been great.
I know a lot of
that would-
attorneys, so
yeah.
I can understand.
We'll tell you offline. We have a mutual friend who's an
Oh,
attorney.
awesome.
Like we love hearing his name coming up. But,
All right. So,
I probably know him or know
you
of him.
absolutely do.
so they interview her. They interview everybody at the house. And what ultimately happens at that point? I mean,
You know, it was really strange because nobody knew what was going on.
nobody.
Yet. Nobody. The sheriff's department, contrary to popular belief, they spent a lot of time around that administrative hall. They were walking around. They couldn't find footprints in the back. They wanted to make sure nobody came. I guess there's a door back there. And there's an access road, no tire tracks or anything. Because at the beginning, they were treating it, it could have been a homicide. They did consider that a kidnapping or a disappearance. They didn't know what they had.
Did they? Because I don't believe they did not put a dive team in the water that day.
Well, I'll get to that one, but just to dispel something, Medina County really didn't have a dive team at the time. I think they formed one since, but nobody went in the water. No, and it was really, they were searching everywhere. Kevin Ross who was head of detectives at the time, told me that they were walking along the ditch line towards Chippewa Lake looking for a knife, looking for something.
Footprints, anything.
Yeah, there wasn't anything conclusive found. And it was just strange.
I mean, we'd have no way of knowing other than reports, but I'm assuming the lake would have been frozen over during that time.
It was, but not
partially.
Partially. It
Yeah.
wasn't fully. And see, here's another thing where people are saying they lowered that lake 18 inches in November.
Yeah.
And that played into it later on.
Is that every year they do that?
Yes. To keep from damaging the docks and things like that.
Mhm.
And so that plays into it a little bit too.
So search party all over around the lake, essentially?
No, that was
No.
the funny part. They did some searching around the lake, but nothing major. And they were planning this large grid search. I think they were going to do it on Saturday or possibly even Sunday morning. And up until then, they had flown, State Highway Patrol flew a plane looking for him. They searched around the lake. They searched the path he would have taken to get to the lake. They searched in those areas from a plane.
Mhm.
And so next thing you know, out of the blue, Tom Miller, the sheriff, called up and says, I don't want anybody around the lake. We know he wouldn't allow him to do that. They had a dive team ready out of Cincinnati, I believe. Michael Costello was arranging it. In fact, he was qualified to drive the boat. They had a search and rescue dogs out of Parma, and I can't think of the name of them off the top of my head. They're pretty well known. They were going to come out. They had firemen and policemen from all around the county were volunteering in a grid search. And for some odd reason, they called it off and they said, we know he's not in the lake.
Wow. So,
And
That was a call by the former sheriff.
Tom Miller.
so that's the mistake.
That
That led, I mean, fast forward to a year later, his body shows up in the lake. Surprise everybody.
2 months later.
Oh, 2 months later.
Yeah.
2 months later.
But
Let's go back to Tom Miller for just a second here.
Mhm.
So
can we pause on that note?
Tom Miller?
Yeah, let's pause on Tom Miller. I got to take a bathroom break. Sorry. It's funny. We're about to get this thing started, but goddamn, every time I think about the idea that this guy was telling people that the sheriff was going to hide in the closet, that's just mind-boggling to me.
Sanford said that he would have
I'll
parked
go.
his car right in the front.
Since we paused, I'll go.
He would have parked in the front, sat at the door, and demanded an ID.
Yeah. I mean, no sheriff's gonna sit in a closet while a potential violent person is coming up, and we haven't even really touched on that. But the idea that he was gonna be there was this angry resident who he's never gives a name to anybody for. So he cocks up this plan that the sheriff's gonna hide in the closet, and it's like, what sheriff would hide in the closet and take the chance that this guy just comes in and just shoots you in 2 seconds? Like, that's never
The
gonna
guy could have
happen.
walked in and shot him before he knew what happened.
Yeah, 100%. The sheriff sitting in the closet could have taken the second round through the closet door. Like, it's just unheard of. And it's the idea that anybody actually went along with this and thought that this was a good idea.
Well, none of
Or
them
that-
have police backgrounds.
No, but I mean, I
Yeah.
feel like it's common sense. You don't ask a sheriff
I
or a
thought it
cop to
was.
hide in the closet. Like, I mean, the first thing I thought of was like, this guy told people the sheriff was going to hide in the closet. Like, that's just mind-boggling to me.
Well-
That'll never happen in this lifetime. I mean, it's not a sting operation. Like, it's a pissed off dude. Like, just let him fucking come in and be pissed off. But all right, let's get back to Tom Miller.
One second,
You
real
need one
quick.
more second.
Okay.
Yeah, let me just.
Yeah, there's a lot about this entire case. We have a friend
friend.
He's not here. We're going to see if he listened this far along. But he's one of the co-hosts here at Guys Night, Evan. And I'm wondering if he's related to Bryon. Some of the stories they
We're
tell
not being
very
recorded, right?
Some of them seem very.
Well,
We are.
Okay.
Yeah. And will edit.
Afterwards,
presumably.
I'll tell you something.
Good.
Afterwards.
All right. So let's get back to. Yeah, I'll probably leave some of that in because it's funny, but I'll make sure.
Definitely the shit talking. We
To
can.
Evan.
Yeah,
no,
it's
we
kind of
definitely
funny.
leave that
Leave
in.
It's kind of
We'll
funny.
see if he listened this far in.
So you had my attention at Sheriff Tom Miller. Now I don't know the man personally. Mutual friends worked at the SO, and they certainly have some opinions. But just from my recollection, so it just piqued my interest that you said that. So he calls off the search because he's the decision maker. He's not in the lake. We're sure of it. So no more search there. Now, any information on why? Did he ever say anything publicly why? And then how long after that? Because I think, and this is just off of memory, but I think he then went on some sort of leave of absence, if I'm not mistaken.
Tom Miller?
Yeah.
I'm not aware of it, but
Okay.
not that I'm aware of. But I think what a hindrance was, Kevin Ross, who was head of detectives, was out of town that weekend. I really believe if Kevin Ross were still in town, he would have convinced Tom not to call off that search. Because if nothing else, to eliminate that. Now, I do want to preface something. They did some searching around the lake, but it was more cursory. I was by David Sentner said they went partially into the inlet, but they didn't go all the way in because it was rough to get in there.
He's
he's
a canine guy as well, right? Is that there's a canine deputy in Medina here with a similar name.
Not that I know of. I just met with him last week. He's a Hinckley police chief now.
Okay, no, not the same guy I'm thinking of then. Okay.
So I'm going to pull this up real quick because, like I said, lived here. Here's Chippewa Lake.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
And then where is the inlet?
Where's Beach Street? Beachside.
I have no
Beach.
idea.
Yeah, Beachside.
Is that a road? Okay.
Yeah.
So right down here is Beachside.
The inlet is. You see that? Red?
This right here.
That's Beachside. Somewhere over there is the inlet. I walked it. One of my friends, Kim.
Is it right off the road? Like, because here's a little road with a little boat launch.
Where's the village inn now?
Oh, that I don't know.
That's going to be up.
Up there. Okay, it's somewhere down here is the inlet.
Down in this area here.
Yeah, it's that little
Right
little
here?
tail right there. If you
That's it.
run
No,
the
that's the exit. That's coming out.
oh, then it's up. It would be
Somewhere up there.
keep going.
I walked it, and it's very
Keep going.
difficult to
You're-
walk.
It's all the way at the top.
Oh,
There
the
you go.
inlet to the. Why would it? Oh, this is Beachside as well. Oh, yeah. That's why I'm confused.
And then you walk it.
So it
Yeah,
could be.
there it
Is
is.
it this area or this area?
That one, top
This-
part.
this one right here.
somewhere
All
up
right.
there.
So this is it, and then this is Chippewa Road. So this is the area that gets flooded every year, like multiple times, every time it rains or anything else, right? And for those that are familiar with this area, everything over here is essentially high grass.
Mhm.
Am
Yeah.
I correct?
That is correct.
And then is this the parking lot he was in?
No, he would have been down here further.
So he actually drove all the way down into here
Yeah,
and
I'm not
parked
sure.
somewhere.
I'm a little confused on this because I don't know the area. Well.
The parking lot is scroll down. You're zoomed in way too far.
Yeah, go down a little bit.
That's all houses in that whole area there. Keep going. Near where that ramp and where that other keep going.
In here? Oh,
Keep
down
going,
here?
keep going. See right there it says Blue Bay.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, that's where the parking lot is.
So
right
this
there.
is where he was actually found?
Where,
Or, I mean, where his car was found?
Where the car was found is there. Where that says Gloria Gaines
Okay.
Beach. That's the beach. That's like the public access, and that's where the little parking lot is. All the other stuff up there is all houses.
And
Right.
there's a little parking lot over there, but it's only for residents.
Right.
So this guy, parked his car here essentially.
There,
and-
there is another little parking lot. So if you turn down the road where Village Inn is,
Okay.
Where's
but
the
it's
village in?
you'll have to then zoom back in. See
I'm
where
just curious because that's how I can. I've been in there a couple times.
right there. See the red dot, Village Inn,
Right
Yeah,
here.
right
okay,
side
there
of the
you go.
screen.
That's
up
right.
higher, up.
Oh, yeah,
Up there.
right here.
So past that, what is that road there? Long, whatever it is, the one that Village Inn is off of.
Right there.
Right here, Longacre.
Yeah, so there, it's not really a parking lot, but like because there's homes in there, but you could technically, there's like a little chain, and
That
you could
end
get
of
to the beach
side,
right there.
Right there. That's where his car was found. That would fit right where that inlet was.
Yeah.
So over in this area is where it was found, or down in that parking lot? Down
No,
here?
go back where you were. Right about there.
Here?
Somewhere in that area, yeah.
Oh, okay. So he literally just pulled into this road and parked somewhere over.
There was there's a parking lot over there.
Oh, there is a parking lot over here,
Yeah.
a small one.
And then there's the inlet over there. And
So this guy basically dropped his car off and then walked up to this inlet area.
well, we don't know
or
where
that's
he
what
got
we're
in.
assuming. It's
Yeah.
or drug over there or whatever the case might be.
The reason why they think he went into the inlet is because they do lower it, and they think he laid along the shore, not really in the water that far. But when everything thawed out, water went up, and it moves pretty fast. And he was found somewhere pretty close to where your cursor is. He was found in that area.
Gotcha. So he's found a couple of months later.
February 21st, was it? Or
Man.
somewhere in that period of
I
time.
mean, it's still
yeah.
cold. Actually, let's get back to the search call off. So essentially, they decide not to do any more searching in the lake. They just probably did some general walking around. I'm guessing there's a walkway
And driving
the lake
around.
and driving
Nothing
around
more.
looking. Nobody did a full search. That is kind of surprising. Like if you're looking for a conspiracy to start, we always talk about why conspiracies start, and it really
And that's
starts
it.
because of like one stupid mistake. It's not a little mistake; it's a big mistake. Why, if you're looking for a man, why would you call off a search in the first 48 hours before you found him? I mean, people have searched thousands of acres of woods.
Well, one person said, well, it's a big lake. I go, well, Lake Erie, that's a puddle.
I mean, they found Gabby Petito in the Grand Tetons. They searched for like a week. Like, so, I mean, not to mention, obviously they ended up finding her by the luck of draw, but like, it's hard for me to believe that you couldn't have gotten a dozen dogs or even 2 dogs and 100 people and found him.
Easily 100 people.
They did run dogs in that neighborhood. I do know that. But yeah, the reason why they would call off search now, I could understand fiscally if you're in a tight spot because that is a lot of resources. But when you've got people volunteering,
half the police and fire all around across the county
right?
were volunteering.
Yeah, who isn't going to step up for a trustee, not knowing anything about their personal life or anything? Like you hear about a public official has gone missing or anybody. Like we get the silver alerts and people go looking. I go looking and go looking to help people find people.
Well, not only that, but he was a Marine too. So
Right.
you're going to have veterans that are going to be out there looking for him just because.
And that was a
that's what
group that
veterans
had
do.
volunteered.
Yeah,
I mean,
oh,
there
yeah.
were, and Tom Miller was adamant. I don't want people around the lake, and it just, I cannot. In fact, Scott Gardner. One of the few things he and I agree with is neither one of us can come up with a rational reason why they called off that search.
And I'm sure he's been questioned on it 100 times, right?
What I was told is he doesn't want to talk about it.
Well, of course.
He's never, and here was when they came up with the conclusion of what happened to Bryon, Dr. Lisa Durenick, coroner, was there. Forrest Thompson, prosecutor, was there facing the music. Tom Miller sent out Captain Sentner because he didn't want to face the music, because I think he was worried about being questioned. Why did you assume he wasn't there? And I don't know if you're aware of this, but early February, before they found the body, Victoria Macron, her investigator, who wasn't an investigator, and her lawyer met with the sheriff's department. It's a video. And I don't know who it was who told her. He goes, because she said, "Are you sure he's not in the lake?" He said, "We know he's not in the lake. We know that's not possible."
Wow.
But they never disclosed what made them believe that. Though there was some evidence that he took off.
Yeah, that's, of course, after the fact, that's substantial. At the time, you want to trust your elected sheriff who made that decision. You want to trust that, but after the fact, yeah, that's enough to set off, a whole. It's interesting that that's not one, unless I just haven't come across it yet. But it's strange that one is not talked about more. Like
The sheriff that
Easy
didn't do
reason
that.
why.
right.
A lot of this traces Matt Ray, his mother Sharon Ray, state representative. Tom Miller was a strong supporter of hers. That's the reason why they don't talk about it. But Tom Miller, if Tom Miller had just let the search go on, we wouldn't be here.
Right.
There wouldn't be any conspiracies.
Right.
So, we've talked about a lot, and I just realized we left out the most suspicious part. Right? What about all the blood back at the Lafayette Township? How did they come across? Where'd all the blood come from?
Well, he cut himself.
They
came up with that conclusion, and he watered down some of the blood because if you look at it, what caught them by surprise, it was wiped on.
Now, is this documented that caught people by surprise, or?
Yeah, it was in the BCI reports.
Okay,
because they processed it and they said it was. Jim Cartwright explained it to me. Would have been a splatter. And then he goes and it creates what he calls blood boogers. It dries and it looks like that.
Mm-hmm.
This wasn't drying like that. It was still wet and it was still bright red, and blood dries brown. So that's one of the reasons why they're able to figure out that things went on.
Especially splatter tends to dry a lot quicker than even like puddled and such. Do you remember if this is going to sound like a really stupid question? Probably is. But do you remember if the swipe was upward or downward?
No, I don't.
I'd be curious about that too.
Because what Jim Cartwright thinks is that when he stabbed himself in the neck, it hurt. He cut himself. He didn't really stab, but he cut pretty deep.
Yeah.
He thinks he went on the ground then and knocked, because that's pretty painful. And
Sure.
that's when he wiped it. But I couldn't tell you whether it was going up or down.
Yeah.
Now when I go home, I'm going to look at those pictures.
Yeah, it's kind of curious because, was it, if it's contrived, okay, you're going to, I recall with the chair and all that, but
I was looking for the actual.
If you're just trying to make it look like a struggle or something, is it from you used the wall to break your fall, or did you just swipe it on your way down? Is it upward? Is it?
They know he put his hand up to steady himself, is what they believe. And there's another thing in that picture. Go back to that one you just had.
I don't think there's any blood on that one though.
No, the jacket. Why do you leave his jacket behind in that kind of weather?
When it's cold.
I mean, it was freaking cold out there.
Sorry.
I mean, it was.
Did he have any diving experience himself?
Not that we're aware of, no.
I know divers. I'm not a diver, but I know plenty of divers, and they talk about rescuing people. In fact, we've done some videos with the people on the ice rescue team, and we've talked to them about what it's like being a first responder on scene to those. And we had a really interesting conversation with them about well, here's what we're dealing with because this is what the person is dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And you think about when somebody wants to kill themselves, this is definitely a pretty painful way to go about it, freezing to death and or bleeding to death, right?
Both.
When I was interviewing Dr. Dorenick, she had an interesting take on that with the hypothermia. I would have thought that was a real painful way to go. She goes, you're shivering a lot, she goes, all of a sudden you get a warm feeling because your body shuts down and you just lay down and fall asleep and die. She didn't feel, it doesn't happen often. There are hypothermia suicides. Number one, it has to be in certain seasons. It has to be in a geographical location. You're not going to be in July. You're not going to have hypothermia.
Right.
Yeah. You're just not. But it does happen.
And is that what the medical report says?
They said probable.
Probable.
They didn't think it was. They just came up with undetermined because they couldn't prove it. She, in her interview that day that they came up with a conclusion, she felt it was a suicide. I still lean that way, but there's other theories about it because he had a lot of risk factors going on in his life, specifically financial.
Well, so the first thing you would say, I think we've covered essentially everything. So apparently the narrative is that he cut himself enough to bleed white blood, drive to the lake and lay down and eventually die. Right. One, I question myself like, okay, while it could have been watered down blood, I mean, you're still cutting yourself. Like anything could go wrong. So what made him think that this would be a good way to do it? Right. If I was going to kill myself and my idea was I'm going to stage a crime scene, first of all, and then I'm going to drive 4 miles after I just cut myself and stab myself in the neck. And then I'm going to lay down in a lake and die of cold. Like, to me, that whole process seems really unnecessary. I could have just disappeared.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. He had talked about disappearing. And I'll tell you, he was talking to Linda Bowers. She remembered this. And contrary to what people believe, those two were friends. I mean, I've got some text messages between the two of them. He had mentioned to her it would be easy to disappear. And Linda said, no, not in this day and age. And he brought up Mel Wiley. And Mel Wiley was the police chief in Hinckley back in the 80s, I think it was. He just disappeared. Nobody ever found a trace of him. He was down at Edgewater Park. And they've since found out he is alive on the West Coast. But he thought he could disappear too. But we were shocked he knew Mel Wiley.
Yeah.
Because he was too young to know who he was. So he was Googling stuff like that. And
so that was another thing. There was some search results on the internet on his phone that were displayed later, right? Or on
yeah,
his
how
computer.
long does it take to die of hypothermia and bloodletting?
Yeah. Like,
And-
those are two things that, I mean, you don't just accidentally. First of all, the conspiracies that Linda or Mike or other people were behind it. I don't think they didn't know the passwords.
No,
So they couldn't have gone over there and done a search result.
no.
Because I did read something where like they used to keep their passwords for their computers in a safe or something there, but for some reason his either weren't in there or they were changed because they couldn't get the cops to
He
get them in.
he changed passwords. Victoria Macron was reluctant to give up passwords, stuff like that. So it was a lot of chaos those first few days.
But yeah, I mean, I can't imagine Googling those things and then that being how you die and that not being the end of this.
In
case.
between accessing an escort service.
Yeah, I did hear there's some. That was back when Backpage was a thing.
500 and sometimes he accessed it.
Yeah, women though, from what I understand.
I don't know.
Yeah, but
What's Backpage?
you don't know what Backpage is?
No.
Never been to Vegas.
I've been to Vegas more than most. But,
Backpage was it was like a Craigslist for finding hookers.
oh,
That was
But-
one of the things, but they were.
I mean, they had other services too,
Yeah.
but that was pretty.
It got
much
shut
like
down for
dog-
human trafficking.
like dog walking too, or no? Not just.
You would probably find dog walkers on there.
They probably could, but it was shut down for human trafficking, if I remember right.
I think so. Yeah. It was pretty bad. But yeah, so, now let's talk about all the heat some of the people have gotten. So you talked about Linda Bowers multiple times, and she's been attacked pretty heavily in the media.
She not so
Not
much in the media,
in the social media.
social media. Some of it's disgraceful. She's actually given speeches now on weaponizing social media as a victim. She has been stalked. A guy followed her car to a drug mart in Medina. Victoria Macron actually doxed her, gave people the make and what her car looks like. So this has been going, and these are just things we found out. One of their supporters inadvertently posted on Facebook, yeah, I was there when all the stalking was going on. And I'm like, and you didn't call the police? And most of the people in law enforcement I interviewed have said the same thing. Those are just the things we know of. And it was really bizarre. I have a great story on that. There's a brewery in Brunswick I go to once in a while, Ignite. And I'm in there, and this couple was there. We started talking. It turned out her grandfather, I knew him from my city council days. And we started talking about, I started writing this book, blah, blah, blah. And I mentioned Linda, and he goes, the husband goes, oh, I hate that Bowers bitch. She's involved. I go, well, how long have you known her? Well, I've never met her. That's the general consensus. When I would bring some of the comments these people make on social media, Maria Matthews, an instructor from Baldwin Wallace. Linda, what did you do to this woman? I don't even know this woman.
Wow.
I don't know this guy. She knows none of these people. Michael Costello, the same way. They don't even know these people.
So when did they? Did they not get reelected, or they just decided not to run again?
They didn't get reelected.
So
I don't know whether that affected or not. We'll never know. But
we could assume.
it didn't help.
Yeah.
But it continues. And some of it has been so out of control. And, Linda has actually, I think it's at a point now, because I've even told her, You've got to sue a few of these people. We had a woman who, what was her name? Her name's escaping me. She came out and said it. Well, I'll say it. Nobody else will. She's a murderous bitch, meaning Linda, because this thread was about Linda. And I remember sitting there thinking, what is wrong with you people? Finally, I put out a challenge. I said, Victoria, post it on Facebook. Michael Costello and Linda Bowers were involved with murdering my husband, and sign it.
Yeah.
And then get ready to defend it. Quit playing these games, stalking and doxing. Put it out there. She never responded.
So in our limited experience with this, we know, because we've also gotten lots of emails, lots of public comments about it, and that's our general responses as well. And we'd say that to everybody else out there. Like, we're willing to sit down. We're a platform to have people on and sit and talk about things like that. But I take the same position. It's like, well, if that's your opinion, own it. To all the anonymous posters out there, you're welcome to sit right here and present whatever evidence you want as well. But there is a limit to quote unquote free speech that will not indemnify from defaming people out there.
Consequences to free speech. There are.
The other aspect of this is, for everybody that wants to say there's holes in the investigation, and here, for those listening, I might sound like I've made up my side of which one I fall on. I really don't. I'm just listening to the evidence. And
are you sure?
Yeah.
Sounds like you have an opinion, Will. Would you want to share that right now?
Well, here, I don't want to say one way or the other because I haven't seen the physical evidence. I know you've brought some stuff with you tonight, but I haven't seen the physical evidence. I haven't seen the paper. I can only go off of what I've heard. And not only just what I've heard from you, I've probably spent 10 hours listening to the ex-chief on his end before I even really talked to you at all today.
And he's very passionate. And he's very well informed, too.
Who?
The infamous ex-chief.
Yeah, but so my very first experience hearing kind of like all right, so you come out, you say, hey, I want to write a book. I have no idea what your book's about as far as what side of the fence you're on. I don't know if you believe it's a conspiracy and you got proof of Nexus did it or whatever, right?
The Nexus goons, as somebody called them.
So what's the first thing I do? I Google the case because my wife's like, oh, there's actually a couple of crime, what's it called on this podcast on. I was like, all right. And then the first one that came up was the infamous ex-chief. So I listened to his live that he did with like another group of podcasters and Linda, is it not Linda? Victoria Macron, the wife, the widow. And I listened to probably 2 hours of it. And he had some audio tech difficulties, which made it tough. But when I listened to it, I was like, she doesn't sound like she's like sad she lost her husband. It sounds like she just wants to like scorch earth. Is the feeling I got. So I was like, I don't know. I feel like my wife would be so heartbroken about it, like she wouldn't even want to be involved in this. And it's not that I think she had something to do with it or anything to that nature. And I'm not trying to call her out for how she acts. She could be just pissed because nobody's finding out the truth. But when I heard that, I thought it was just like one of those interviews where I was listening to them all talk about stuff, and I was like, I don't know, something doesn't add up. So I listened to another one, and everything feels like it's a reach, like all the different scenarios. For instance, if Linda Bowers and Mike Costello, they weren't there at the crime scene.
No.
We know that for a fact. So how are they involved? Did they hire somebody? Okay, well, anytime you hire somebody for murder, there's bank records. There's so much more that's tied to it. There's phone records. Nothing. I found it confusing. I didn't even know this was a thing, but you said nobody had even called other than the guy who showed up and found him missing, Rick. Okay.
That's for my book. If you want to know, there's a smoking gun in chapter 2 that's going to explain some things.
But I found it interesting that a lot of the things that are out there, as far as it's Linda Bowers, it's this, it's Nexus, there's not really any evidence behind it that adds up and makes sense to me. Which is why I was like, do I even want to have this podcast? Because like everybody's so heated about one side or the other. And I was like, I can't see, believe me, I'm looking for any excuse to jump on a conspiracy theory right now. Like,
the next murder on the Orient Express. It's murder.
Yeah, who doesn't want to hear about this awesome conspiracy in their hometown? It's unfortunate that a man passed away, but then we start to find all these other things, financial hardships, traveling all the time despite financial hardships, and there's no evidence pointing to anybody. And then the other aspect of it is we know that he's lied just in this conversation and 24 times, that he's not lied a little, lied a lot. And just setting up the scene in general, why? The only thing I could think of having people meet you out there at 8 or at 8 a.m. if you're going to do this, because otherwise you could just did it and not told anybody, is because maybe you wanted to be found.
I do think he wanted to be found. Now, the only
I mean, like maybe he didn't want to die. Maybe it was a call for help that went wrong.
It could have been, because one of the scenarios that you'll read about in my book does show that he wanted those 2 firemen in Chippewa to find him. The only thing is he miscalculated in his planning. You were in law enforcement. No such thing as a perfect crime.
Right.
He made mistakes. He didn't check that they weren't even working. So nobody was aware. Those 2 firemen weren't even aware till 9 o'clock at night, because they were at their other jobs that Bryon was missing.
What is the 2 firemen? Is that
what happened was he had told everybody he had this meeting with the quote unquote angry resident. I gave the angry resident a pseudonym. I just call him Uncle Fester. When you see my book, you're going to understand exactly why I call him that.
So there was an actual angry resident that was threatening
yes and
him?
No. There was a person
that
was masquerading, and it's bizarre. He also has said that he came clean, and he didn't. He got called out by Forrest Thompson, because Forrest Thompson did figure out who it was.
So there was somebody that was angry and threatening Bryon? No.
He was a person who made 2 phone calls, one in August to Bryon, one in November to Mike. The other phone calls Bryon was getting turned out to be bill collectors.
So there was no record of phone calls of any township employees calling. Were they calling him at his work, or?
They were calling him on a cell phone. They were calling him at the township, because they were getting bill collecting calls at the township. And according to Detective Cartwright, Victoria had gotten some at the courthouse too. There was there was nothing there. But, I want to back up a little bit. You said something about the interviews. You thought Victoria was more interested in scorched earth than anything else.
Yeah.
Sergeant Jim Sanford, when he was questioned by BCI, I think it was in 2019, he is on record as saying Victoria seemed more concerned about anything nefarious Bryon had done than she was about finding him. And because that's when she hired the attorney in the first interview with Sergeant Sanford. So there were a lot of things like that. That's why I found it interesting that you noticed that.
I mean, it's just, like I said, that was the very first bit of information I had taken in on this case at all, was just that live show that they did, and how I felt like she came across. And everybody can grieve differently. I mean, at this point, it's 8 years later. So,
what was Bryon's insurance like?
$65,000 that they know of. There was a $50,000 policy with State Farm, and $15,000 through the township. That's all they've been able to find. And was there more? But keep in mind, when he went missing, and I'm going to bring up her name again, Linda Bowers, along with Mike Costello, started a fund for the family. They raised thousands for him. She forgets that. She mentioned it one time in February where she said, well, that money allowed me to keep my house. I think it was on Channel 3 or Channel 5. So there's only a passing reference to that money that was raised. And the community rallied around. It's a very generous community, Lafayette. I mean, they started a food train where they brought food to the family. They had that fund. They also a lot of people pitched in, so the kids had a good Christmas. They got everything they wanted. And then Bryon would have known how generous that community was, and yet everybody hates Linda Bowers, but she was one of them that stepped up for the family.
So he didn't have some multi-million-dollar policy waiting in the wings.
They thought he might have, but they never found it. To do something like this, $65,000 is nothing anymore.
No. I mean, even in 2016.
No.
Well, with $50,000 in credit card debt, like
$57,000.
That was one.
Was that
card?
all his credit card, or that? All?
That was just that American Express card that was in his brother's name. And I'll be honest, I have tried to set up a timeline on that card. They've given so many different stories recorded on how it came into existence. One was that they had a business. One of them, I think it was Victoria, said, "Oh, they had a business together." And then Darren, in another recording, said, "I never had a business with my brother." So I really don't know the true story. I can only speculate on that.
So there was some other things that came up on the Linda Bowers interview the day of Bryan's disappearance. One, he didn't have his wallet.
He left it at home.
The Linda or the Victoria?
Linda.
Interview? Okay.
This is this different interview, but
Okay.
with Linda. Yeah. Didn't have his wallet left at home, but he did have his American Express was at the office. Was that what it was?
I don't think they ever found it, if I remember
okay.
right.
It was
That was missing.
Maybe that was the only thing that was missing, so they assumed it was on him. That's what it was.
They never. I don't believe they ever found it. I'll have to double check that. I didn't really think it was that, but I remember them saying that card was missing.
Well, it's interesting because you just play all these different scenarios. I played a scenario earlier where maybe he's looking for a cry for help. He wanted somebody to find him. Then again, if another way to, is to disappear is to make it look like you disappeared, maybe he didn't want anybody to find him at all.
We don't know.
We're never going to know. And then, of course, there could be the evidence that somebody did something. But the only thing that anybody I've heard say right now that could remotely indicate that maybe he was murdered was that the maintenance guy, Rick, said that the boot print that was in the blood didn't look familiar. But did it end up matching what he was wearing?
It matched Bryan. In fact, the boot prints, they have him go in both directions. So he was walking back and forth even after he was bleeding and there was blood out. That's one of the.
Where at the crime scene? Or
at the scene.
At the scene.
Yeah.
Was there any evidence found eventually when he was found in the lake? At that point you're underwater, so there's no evidence ever found around the lake. No boot tracks ever found at the lake or anything like that.
No, because it was a couple months later.
Interesting.
Is the belief that he put himself in the lake or that he just laid down near the inlet? And
Dr. Durenick thinks he laid down somewhere in that inlet because he had mud on part of his face. And unfortunately, I saw the body recovery photos and, it's something you can't unsee. And that's exactly what it looked like to me, too. You could still see the mud on part of him. So it looks like he might have been on some thin ice and then the rest was on the shore. Which kind of fits everything. He fell asleep over there and passed away.
Yeah, you just would have thought the one thing that's a little hinky about it is just the short amount of time. Like you would think that because he had it set up for somebody to find the scene at or around
7
o'clock or 7 when the maintenance guy got there. But then depending, and what time did he leave from there? He left there at 6:30.
6:30. What I was told is Rick Evans, you could set your clock. He's pulling in the driveway at 7 o'clock. And so he knew that. So he left at 6:30 prior to that.
Get out of there before he gets there.
What time did the jogger find it or she crossed his path?
15 minutes after that. It fit the timeline perfectly.
So you don't have the timeline in front of you by chance?
No, I don't. That was off the videotape showed her running right by him.
But to your point of like he wanted to be like found, as in like he wanted, he was a cry for help kind of thing. That's the thing that I think is a little odd because regardless of what he Googles, there's always that chance that like how does he know what the temperature of the ground and the ice and the air are going to be in that exact spot? Like, so what happens if it takes him 5 hours to die, not 30 minutes?
30 minutes, yeah.
Right.
There's another oddity. Everybody's saying murder, murder, murder. But if you go back to those immediate days, many of the same people were posting on Facebook, for Bryan, call us. Bryan, here's the Veterans Suicide Hotline. So what I came out of that is they had seen a change in Bryan's demeanor too. And it turned out quite a few people had seen it, not just the people at the township.
Yeah, and I think that's also part of like that grieving process. Like you don't want to believe that that's how they went out.
No, and that's true with suicide. That's true.
Nobody wants to see anybody take their own life, but gosh, the way that he did it is just if he did do it, if that's what ended up happening, that's awful.
It is odd.
Could you since we're just talking about what happened during that time frame, and do you have any of the medical report? The medical examiner's report, the autopsy. Do you have any of that?
I have them.
Going back to like the knife wounds.
Yeah.
An experienced person with a knife, is not doing this motion or this motion, right?
It's something like this.
Yeah. Well, an experienced person with a knife is going to try and get you in a submission hold, and it's a little different without
And it
getting
would be
graphic.
like that.
Right, it would be from behind, and then somebody in a frantic situation is now doing something like this or something like this, and that's very different than say if you're holding the knife yourself and doing this,
and he
right?
cut himself like this. He cut himself. They think he did this and came down because it got really shallow after he stabbed himself. Deep, shallow on the way down. And
Which would be the opposite of if you're trying to hurt somebody, right?
100%.
You're going to apply more pressure as you're going.
Correct.
The other aspect of this too, and if I'm not mistaken, he was into martial arts.
That's what he
something of that
claimed.
nature,
I mean, he
but-
was into a lot of things. For 4 years in the Marines, he had done a lot. He said he was on a fast team that would go in and rescue people or things. And he said he was.
So we don't know if any of that was true or if
We
he
don't
was,
know. He
yeah,
actually
somebody-
told one couple that he used to guard Israeli diamond owners, diamond dealers. I don't know what's real, but he said he knew jujitsu from the Marines.
Yeah, maybe that's what I saw.
I mean, you got the McMap program, which has got aspects of jiu-jitsu and hand-to-hand combat stuff in it. But, there's people that'll just go roll in a couple of classes and they think they're a jiu-jitsu practitioner or watch some
Takes
videos.
years.
It takes decades, really. But so how many wounds? Do you
7.
know? 7 wounds in total, all in the abdomen area.
And I think there was some on the arms too, if I remember right.
Because you would have, if somebody's stabbing you, you'd at least have to have one on your arm. Like just even if, whether you want to block it or not, you're going to
There were
want
no defensive wounds. That was
0.
the one thing they came up with. The Dr. Delenik or something like that from the medical examiner's office in Cuyahoga County. He's like well known. He wrote a reference book.
They do have homicides up there.
Oh, they have a few. I grew up on the east side of Cleveland. Yeah, I've seen a few myself. But he was pretty adamant about no defensive wounds. And that really kind of clinched it for him. He would know what a defensive wound looks like, too. Nothing on his hands at all. Which,
well, I was going to say the other aspect of it, was there any DNA found on the body? Because I understand it's found in water, but at the same point in time, it's so cold. You would think that it would actually preserve quite a bit.
Yeah,
of
you would think.
there was nothing.
Well, yeah, or the vehicle. So
Vehicle was only his DNA, blood DNA. There was some family DNA, of course.
right.
Nothing else.
No other additional DNA. Yes, yeah. Like for those that are still tuned in and those are on the conspiracy wagon, I'm really just having a hard time finding the evidence that there was something foul play here, and that my fucking alarm keeps going on. I'm having a hard time suspecting foul play, and looking at this more from a different angle. And like I said, I can dissect it. I mean, if you guys seen the Charlie Kirk footage, I think that one video has been dissected into a bazillion milliseconds, trying to find every, so whenever there's a loophole to find a conspiracy, somebody will find it. So let's talk about how has this affected Linda and Mike now?
Linda, it's affected her business. It has affected her mentally because for a while she wouldn't do anything. I mean, she used to be big into philanthropy, active in politics. It's only in the last year or so she's finally saying, fuck them. I'm going to start living my life again. I've been telling her and Mike, live your life. I mean, I went to the polar bear plunge last year in Chippewa. A good friend of mine grew up there. And I said, come down there I don't want to see those people. Get in their face. I'm an in-your-face type person. Get in their faces.
Well, the last thing you want to do is miss out on your life because of the actions.
It's harmed
of
her.
you.
Her husband's in his 80s, and it's been a strain on him. But, she said that it's still in the back of her mind when she pulls out of her driveway. Is somebody going to follow her? Is she going to meet up with them? Because she said she doesn't know these people. She could be in a grocery store and one of them can be standing right behind her. She just doesn't know. And the police have been so concerned. They've had squad cars in her driveway overnight because they've been monitoring some of the chatter. And some of these people are really out there.
Well, I mean, I think we've seen how crazy people can be in general, right?
You noticed?
So, yeah, I mean, it's just insane what people are willing to say or do in this day and age, because we all forget that we're humans, especially when there's no evidence showing that. So another thing that came up during Linda's interview is when the initial calls were coming in that Bryon was complaining about regarding regarding the threats by the local community member. She offered to get the phone tapped.
She was going to contact the sheriff's department.
Yeah, she said it's not even a big deal. I think she said she had it done, or maybe her husband or somebody
It's
that she
really
had known
easy
had
to do
it done
that now.
before. But it was like not even a big deal. You just set your phone down and bada boom,
He
bada
wouldn't do
bing,
it.
and he didn't want to do it. So you tie that into the fact that if he was at it. Now, is there any documentation or any proof or
He
witness
never
that-
made a police report, from what I understand, because I haven't been able to find it either. But he told Jim Sanford, "Hey, can you increase patrols around my house?" But I think he was more grooming Jim Sanford into thinking to being aware of the angry resident, is what Uncle Fester. is
Well, I
what
mean, the
call
other
him.
thing is, I mean, we have phone records. They could literally have cross-referenced every phone
Found
number.
nothing.
Nothing.
No, and that's what all they were fighting were bill collectors.
Yeah.
And-
Go ahead.
Oh, and Jim Cartwright told, I didn't know you could do this. He had an Android. I have an iPhone. He would set the phone to ring with nobody there. And he'd say, "Okay, I gotta go. It's him, the angry resident." And it wasn't even a phone call. That's what they were able to determine. I mean, it was interesting.
It was
when
like
he
he just set a reminder with something that sounded like a ringtone, and
Yep.
like, this is him. And
I mean,
and
the
go fake
conspiracy is if he did set up his own suicide, why? Like, what's going on that we don't see?
Yeah.
Like,
Well-
where's the hidden dough? Where's the Cayman's account? Did he steal a bunch of diamonds and disappear? I mean, he wasn't-
Nothing like that ever was discovered. Everybody has a breaking point in life. You know, I understand mental health. I've hit that breaking point. I think it just got to him. You know, financially, he was really heavily burdened. And Linda Bowers, those two knew each other real well. And I think Victoria was upset. Bryon had confided a lot in her to Linda. He goes, he goes, I don't know how to pay for my kids' college. And Linda said, "Well, can't the VA help you?" And he goes, "Only if I'm dead."
This is per her.
Yeah.
Right.
And it kind of fits what was going on, because they were all kind of wondering about stuff like that. And then they since found out that Bryon's mother had been supporting the family financially too. That was discovered, and she died several months before that. It was shortly thereafter when the bill collection started. Bryon, somewhere in that time frame, lost his job. He was told
As the diamond, or is that his sidekick or side
no,
job?
the diamond, his regular job.
So he made jewelry as well, I believe.
He sold jewelry.
Yeah, somebody reached out to me like he made my engagement ring or something like that, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't even know he was a jeweler." And she was
Yeah.
like, "It was his side hustle. That's why he got killed."
Oh,
I'm not even
Over-
shitting you.
Over that engagement ring.
Not
Exactly.
even shitting you. They said it was something to do with his. They were upset about his side hustle or something, and I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
I just didn't reply because I didn't even know how to. But it was
I
like it
wouldn't
was
know
one
how
of
to-
those things where it's like, man, people will just say anything. Like,
Oh, you should get on that Justice for Bryon Macron.
so I am on that page because, and actually,
I'm sure they're quieter
I
now.
I followed it just to see if anything would come up, and somebody just shared. Somebody took our post and shared it in the group, and I didn't see really. I mean, there wasn't any hate in it. There's
There
some
will be
people
when
that-
they find out I was
Yeah.
on it.
well, there was some people that mentioned some things, and I mean, I just shared my opinion,
Yeah.
in a sense of like, hey, look, we're just gonna have a conversation. I'm not here to judge. You
Mm-hmm.
can think whatever you want. You can believe that the sheriff's office did a terrible job. I think that they did as far as calling off the search, because like we said, none of this would 10 years later. This would have been we would have eliminated 9 years of people's lives being lost into the
100%.
weeds. But then you wouldn't have a book.
I would have been writing a different one. I was trolling for a while.
So now through the book, we've talked about a lot of different stuff, and obviously, when you're writing a book, you're writing it as factual, right? This isn't an opinion piece.
No.
So-
The only thing I'm giving my opinion in the book is about whether or not I thought it was a suicide, but I'm going to explain the risk factors he had. But I'm also giving the alternate too. Contrary to what the infamous police chief said, there were no secondhand quotes, no third-hand quote. Everything has to be a direct quote from people.
Well, I was going to say. So, are you listing the person giving the quote as well?
If they want to be anonymous, it doesn't go in the book,
Gotcha.
because I don't like those. If you're not going to identify yourself, then you're not real.
Well, then the
confident in what
quote's
you're
not
saying.
real. There's no if
isn't.
as a consumer looking at information, if I'm fact checking something and I can't get a name, like I just don't believe it.
No, technically, if I could get two people to corroborate it, I can use it. I just don't, because I would always question it myself.
Now, are you putting pictures or anything of any of the evidence or things?
Some of it will be in there. because they're like, especially that the village hall, there that blood evidence, and I'm going to put a picture also what it should have looked like, because the blood splatter, you know yourself, that blood in a battle, blood would have splattered everywhere. They would have found it on the ceiling.
Yeah.
And it was nothing like that. And things like that I'm going to put on there.
Are you going to have some of the, like, do you have access to the phone records and things like that, or credit card rate statements? Are you going to have that placed in
I'm
there?
going to have the $57,000 one on there. I'm going to have phone records on there too, because they're critical too. I'm also going to put on the page eventually some of Victoria's comments that really totally contradict each other. She made one that was really bizarre. I think it was on Lena Lie, Channel 3. She said that, that she was laying in bed at 2:08. A Facebook message came across Bryan's phone and lit up the room. And I'm like, boy, why did she say 2:08? And it bugged me for over a week. And all of a sudden it hit me. How could it? That phone was at the hall. So, but she never referenced that again.
Well, some of the other things that she said, even during the interview with, or the conversation with the chief, ex-chief,
infamous ex-chief.
I don't mean to be disrespectful. I mean, I'm just going to call him the chief. And we'll talk about his experience too, getting into this, because he's got countless videos going through documents and data and stuff like that. But one of the things that I forgot what I was going to say. One of the things that she touched on was she says things like she's obviously very angry at Linda Bowers in this meeting, and she has this one conversation where she says Linda said she was going to be the emergency contact for my child, and if she ever says something like that, lie again, I'm gonna blah blah blah. And she goes, we weren't friends, we were acquaintances. And so then I hear the maintenance guy who's like, no, we were all family. We all hung out. Everybody got along. Everybody's, and it's like, why are we intentionally painting a picture that Linda's the bad person here?
I can't figure that out.
Here's there's no evidence pointing to her. That's the frustrating part. Like, if there was blood on Linda's car tire or something, and they can't explain how it got there, or Linda was there when everybody showed up and she was the first one to announce it and her hands were red, like
full of blood.
Right? Yeah, there's zero evidence. And don't let me forget about the knife too.
Okay.
There's zero evidence, but you spew all this hate towards her. And to my opinion, when there's no evidence of one thing, and that's where a lot of the focus goes, is because you're trying to take the focus off of something else. And I don't know Miss Macron. I don't pretend to know her. I'm not trying to call her out. I'm just saying, as a third party who had, like I said, zero interest in this at all, who had the only content on this that I had followed was hers and the ex-chief's. I thought that she was almost like doing it just because maybe she did know that he was planning on doing this.
Well,
I think the fact that they didn't find the body, that explains a lot about lawyering up later, because now all of a sudden now it's like harder to lie.
She lawyered up within a week.
Right. But I'm saying, like, if they found his body the same day, everybody would have just known. She was at work, everything's off. Not saying she had a part in it or anything. What I am saying, though, is the fact that they didn't find it, every conversation she had with the police was going to look like there's things that she's hiding, or she's going to look like she's hiding, which is going to make her complacent to the fact that maybe she did know, or maybe she was a part of it, or maybe she suspected it. So what's the best way to do that? Just get really fucking mad at everybody else and blame everybody else for anything and everything you can.
You hit it on, yeah.
And then all you need is 5 people to back you up.
And that's essentially what she has. She said she barely knew Linda. They went on a mission trip from a church to New Jersey when there was a hurricane to rebuild it. They were up there for like a week. They took a 10-hour bus ride each way.
Just the two of them?
No, there was a group from the church, but the picture is clear. Both directions, they sat next to each other. So that kind of fell apart. And there were so many other things that just, if you look at her phone records, Linda Bowers, she was on the phone with Victoria Macron December, January, and early February for hours, just listening to her.
Really?
Because she was being her sounding board, and Linda was even telling me, she goes, I fell asleep a couple times because I was on the phone with her for so long, but I wasn't going to hang up. So the stories on that didn't add up. Now, the part about Linda being the contact, what I think happened, Bryon lied a lot. Let's face facts. I think Bryon told Linda, "Oh, you're going to be my kid's contact," and that was the end of it. And that's where that got confused, because even Linda finally admitted, goes, Bryon told me, Victoria didn't. But she never gave that a thought, because she said we were all friends. We were all good friends. Rick Evans, we were like family.
Right.
And everybody has told me the same thing, except for that small group where Victoria Macron was involved. But it's interesting how you say you were talking about, deflection and stuff. They have spent a lot of time. Michael Costello, single guy, has had ex-girlfriends. I got some ex-girlfriends. A couple of them want to kill me, I'm sure. Trust me. But they're trying to contact them to get them to say something about Bryon. And it's like, my answer is, those are his ex-girlfriends. Those are none of your business. They're texting them.
Wow.
And they're never going to say anything positive usually.
No, but I go, why aren't you texting some of Bryon's friends that he hung around all that time?
Friends.
What was the word? I always had to write it down. Unconventional friends. Nobody's contacted them except for law enforcement.
To be Victoria's advocate in this for just a second, it's not uncharacteristic for somebody in her situation to lawyer up. Like it is a scary thing. Husband's been killed or killed himself or missing at this point. And now, and I'm no homicide detective, never was. But I've played one on TV one time now. But, prime suspect is always the spouse. That's where you're going to, or let's 100%. Say prime person of interest is going to be the spouse. The spouse always has more information than anyone else, unless the person may have unconventional friends. Then maybe they would have the most information, right? So I think, to come to her defense a little bit, don't know her, don't know much about her, but it's not uncharacteristic for somebody like that to lawyer up, because they need to, it's just even a shield, right? Like they can stop the phone calls or the knocks on the door and say, we will come to your office, et cetera, et cetera. But I would have to imagine that she's well aware of her husband's activities and unconventional friends. There's no way. There's no way that there's no way imaginable that he could just disappear like he did for periods on end and not her not question it.
And it was interesting. Even Charlie Snyder from the Bureau of Criminal Investigation talked about their unconventional relationship. And he even came up and said, I think he committed suicide, just not in a conventional way. It still doesn't matter to these people, because Victoria has focused on Linda Bowers in a hateful way that I sometimes I just sit back. I go, what is wrong with you? I can understand being angry, because that's one of the healing process in grief.
Yeah.
She just is not letting it go.
Yeah. And I mean, there's, now all of her business is now public in that regard too. So now there's an embarrassment there as well that, my husband is got other interests, got other lives, plural, in other places.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got that much credit card debt, presumably some of it was travel, because, he accidentally ended up on a plane to LA, not to Ohio. Whoops.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting, because I even said to Mike Costello, and you believed him? He goes, he was a friend, even though I doubted it. I go, what are you supposed to do with a friend?
Yeah.
And did they ever tell you about the woodpecker story?
No.
Bryon, with one of his guns, was claiming that he had a woodpecker that was driving him crazy. So one day he took one of his guns, went out there and shot the woodpecker. And Mike and Linda go, we thought it was kind of crazy. I go, okay, I got one question for you two. And both of them have CCWs. Mike and Linda both shoot. Linda's a good shot too. I go, where did the bullet go? He lives in a neighborhood. And they, oh yeah. But they trusted him as a friend. That's why they never questioned these things. It wasn't until after all this happened that they're looking back and seeing things with Bryon that just didn't quite make sense. And when I still find things. I go back to Linda. I go, were you aware of this? Her jaw still hits the ground. She goes, how? And it's baffling that this has kept going on, but I think it's the new norm. with criminal things like this, when you can create a conspiracy, social media is going to create a conspiracy no matter what.
Yeah. And with a million threads.
Yeah, and this is probably the new norm.
So obviously, when we were just talking about the poor decision, this is going to be a little bit of a rhetorical question, but the poor decision of the prior sheriff to call off the search, like I think, just us as three guys who our opinions don't matter. Yours does because you're writing a book, but
Still doesn't matter that much.
But if we were sheriff at the time, like we would have made a different decision at the time. I think the three of us can agree on that. Is there any motivation for the current sheriff's administration to not solve this case? If there is a case,
Terry Grice, good man. I'm going to tell you something. Everybody who was on this case, Terry Grice, Cartwright, Ross, Sanford, Sentner, Forrest Thompson, all of them are good people. I've sat down with all of them, and those police officers have impeccable records. Terry Grice, if there was a case there, would do something. I think he knows it's what it is. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And I think it's not that he wants it to go away. It's just he knows he can't take it anywhere.
Right.
I think he knows what Bryon did because he knew Bryon. I don't know. But
he knew him personally.
Victoria used to babysit his kids.
Terry's kids?
Yeah.
Sheriff Grice? Wow.
And Grice, I never knew him until this happened. Terry's a good man. I've seen when he shot that person in that mental health crisis. And somebody called me and asked me, wasn't that terrible? I go, he did everything he could. Non-lethal force, everything. He had no options.
Right.
I think he handled that perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, I'm confident that he got caught in a bad situation the first time they came to him about Bryon being tied down. Victoria set up a meeting. He goes out there, Channel 19's with her.
Oh, my God.
And they kind of got ambushed. And so he brings Ross. I'm sure Ross isn't happy about it even to this day. And he said he was tied down. And he said, we're going to investigate it. Well, Victoria ran out. He's reopening the case. No, he goes, we have new questions, not evidence. And they investigated it. Found out it was a rumor. And the guy who made the claim backed off because the guy who was in the water claimed, look, there was nothing tying him down. But I think Grice gets put in a bad situation, but I think he handled it very well.
I mean, I don't know how you could handle a case that's 10 years old. I mean, he's been sheriff now for 2 or 4 years, I guess. So 6 years old at that time.
4
right?
years, yeah.
Like I said, I'm outsider standing in. I'm not seeing the evidence, but
Nobody has.
But it's like, do I just go pull up the evidence now and go look at all the files?
Well, either way, like this would be something like this. Like if there's another explanation for this, and sure, well, there's a questionable explanation for it right now, but if there is another one and it can be proven, I have no doubt in my mind whether it's a deputy who's been on for 4 months or all the way up to the sheriff himself. Like this is a career maker case. So if there's a case to be made
They would
here,
have found it.
they're all motivated to make the case. There's nobody in there that there's a benefit for not making this case because
you're governor.
You're POTUS at this point. Like,
You're going to be all over the media.
Yeah.
You solve a 10-year-old case in a local small town
with no evidence.
You're governor. The next you're beating Vivek.
Just like that. Massive.
You know what was interesting? Somebody I interviewed, I'm not going to say who it was.
Watch the case get open tomorrow. If Sheriff Grice listens to this, he's like, fuck it. I'm finding the ghost.
One of them in law enforcement asked me, he says, the case as a civilian probably better than anybody because I actually can interview the sheriff deputies and Linda and Mike where most people can't. They don't realize if you drag people through the mud for years, they're not going to respond to you.
Right.
That and the key word is respect each other.
Or if you've disrespected their profession, so to say.
And they have. And person asked me, they go, you as a civilian, it probably better than anybody. I go, yeah. He said, how much does Victoria know? How deep is she into this? And I'm going to tell you, I laid awake at night thinking about that a couple nights. She's in a lot deeper than people realize. She knows too much of this. And that was a tough question, but I really think she knows a lot more than she's saying.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, all you can do is hear, and I can't. Like I said, I haven't inspected the evidence. I haven't gone through the evidence. I can only go through what I've heard from you, from others, from other interviews,
Yeah.
and I can just hear the evidence and be like, I don't see the conspiracy theory, right? But
Well,
now,
here's how I view that conspiracy. You ever hear the old saying, if more than one person knows a secret, it's not a secret?
yeah,
According to them, all these sheriff deputies who had their hands on this case are keeping this secret and a conspiracy.
right.
All the BCI agents are keeping a conspiracy. 2 sheriffs are keeping this conspiracy. 2 prosecutors' office. You got over 100 people that have had their hands on this case. All of them are keeping the secret.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's ever come forward with anything that's.
Yeah. So you brought some documents with you. What did you actually bring with you tonight?
I forgot one thing. I got the supplemental report by Jim Cartwright, and that was when Scott Gardner, the police chief, he was in his first interview. You probably remember that.
Are you talking about that infamous ex-chief?
Yeah. He was waving. He goes, "This is the worst investigated case I've ever seen. Only 17 pages and everything." There's between BCI and the sheriff's department is probably over 100,000 documents. And I'm not exaggerating because I've been going through them. You want to see? That's one.
So what is this? This is
This
the
supplemental report. Another good one. Let's see. Who's this report? This was the final result from Charlie Snyder. That's when he went through everything. And this was Bryon being tied down. That was the investigation.
Oh, they actually did open that full
They had
investigation
to.
for it.
They actually did.
Where did the narrative come that he got tied? Oh,
a rumor. One of the firemen
If
supposedly.
that has the
funny.
names,
This-
don't say the names. If that has the names,
I was
on
going
it,
to say,
do not say the names.
relax. I was going to say on
Thank you.
8/24 or 8/4/23, I was asked to look into the Bryon Macron case for a second time.
Yeah.
It's just like I could just hear the tone as he's
Oh, yeah.
saying that.
Yeah.
Because the officers who worked on the case originally were all retired in other departments.
How did he end up getting found?
Bryon, when the water rate went up in the inlet, it took the body out into the lake, and it was a kayaker because it was an unseasonably warm February. Why a kayaker would go out there in February? You fall in the water, you're not going to last long. But he found the body there.
Wow.
And he was upright, and that's what the another conspiracy. Well, he was like that. If he drowned, he was like that. Well, he didn't.
Well, so I
drown.
listened to the ex-famous chief and
Infamous.
God damn it,
Chief.
just ex-chief. I listened to the ex-chief's podcast, the one that he did with those 2 interviews. And the beginning of the podcast was about him describing the body. I want to look through these when we're done, but it was about how it's not possible in all his years as a police chief for a body to freeze that way, or to freeze being vertical, essentially, with just his, I think it was described as like his nose and his forehead were above water or something like that.
Coroner disagrees.
Good thing we live in 2020. What is it, 5? Where I asked both ChatGPT and Grok as well as Google, how would you be able to freeze standing up? And one was first, and the second, it was like out of 5 options or 3 ways or whatever it was either first or second, was that if you're laying in water with clothes, your clothes will weigh you down.
Your shoes.
Your feet will freeze first, basically downward, and then your body will follow on its way up, kind of is the way it was described. Because he didn't have water in his lung. He didn't drown.
He didn't drown. And, Dr. Dorenick told me when his body did thaw out, he would have sunk
Right.
and then washed ashore somewhere
Right.
or in that outlet.
But since there was no water in his
was
lungs,
no water in his
even
lungs.
as he was vertical, that's just floats.
Yeah, and it was because he was like a popsicle.
Mm-hmm.
Until-
Where most people drown, which is why they end up like face down in the prone position.
And that's why
the chief
everybody
says.
thinks he drowned. Yeah, he would have been laying down if he drowned.
Right.
To some extent, but like she said, the shoes still would have pulled him down.
Yeah, his legs would have been down a little bit,
Yeah.
but because there was no water in his lungs to put weight in his upper body, like,
There was not.
and he
yeah.
was, yeah. So
Had he been snacked on by anything?
No, no predator bites.
No,
I had talked about
that was just to make Will laugh.
they look.
Predatorial bites is part of finding
Those
a body.
damn Chippewa mud sharks going up there and taking
Mud
a bite out of them.
Well,
At least you didn't
birds.
say land sharks.
Yeah. I mean, we have eagles. We have tons of vultures.
Yeah,
That
in
time of the
areas,
year.
yeah.
Forrest Thompson explained that to me. They researched that. There wouldn't have been anything out there that time of the year. So they said there was nothing abnormal about that. So there was nothing predator-wise that I know of. And when I saw the body, it was
This probably looked very fresh. It was frozen.
a little blue.
Yeah.
And that was it. And looked like he was awake.
Yeah.
Kind of weird.
Yeah, that's insane.
It was interesting, though, because the time length, 68, he was going, the whole time frame beginning then was 68 days. Stretched through.
So, book comes out in February.
February's the target. I think I'll get it done because I think I have everything I really need. And a few people, when I did put out that one
Chapter.
a couple things shook out. And the most important thing that shook out is the admitting that they were stalking Linda Bowers. That was pretty tough. And there's a couple police reports already that have been made. That was a little bit disturbing, but at least it verified a few things.
Yeah, that's crazy. Where are you going to have the book for sale? You said you're talking about being.
It'll be Amazon. I'm going to have my first talk on it when it's open is at Medina Library. I want to go right into the middle of everything.
We would like to be there.
Absolutely.
You'll be invited there. In fact, I'll be on your show first. You'll be the first show I go on.
All
'Cause
right.
I'm sure I'll be invited to a few other ones.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone's going to want to hear. And after we read that,
I'll have to get a bodyguard probably tomorrow after you guys finish up this.
Internet weirdos out there, don't stalk us.
Don't
Yeah,
stalk us.
Just trust me on this. Do not
I'm easy
stalk
to
us.
find, unfortunately. The Clemson stuff always comes my way.
We are friendly until there's a reason to not be friendly, but we're very friendly. So definitely come find us and talk to us, but don't stalk us.
Don't stalk us and stop the stalking. What you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I challenge everybody that's out there. If you've looked at these different things, if you just think it out with common sense, and I know that's something that our society lacks in general today. But find your inner common sense and look through this. I don't think there's any grand conspiracy, but there could still be a murder out there. So if you do have information regarding this, there's details that you feel like sharing, you're welcome to comment below, add as much as you want to the case. How can they contact you if they've got tips?
Facebook. I also have a page, Mystery at Chippewa Lake, Lies, Damn Lies, social media. But my personal page, I answer.
All right.
I've gotten a few nasty. In fact, I shared with one. I think it was you.
Yeah.
The one, but he was one that I said something really kind of harsh to somebody. Well, the guy was pretty stupid. He goes, authors have the always stand the risk if you use somebody's real name of getting in trouble. I want to say to him, dude, you've been posting stuff on the internet for years. You know, you're kind of fair game, but I decided to take a harsh stand on it.
Oh, I know. I didn't say the one thing that they never found the knife.
No.
Somewhere between Lafayette Township and Chippewa Lake, there's a knife, I think.
I think it was Forrest Thompson. He insists that Bryon cut himself somewhere else. I don't know. Everybody else thinks it's in the hall. We just don't know. Kevin Ross and a few other people walked the ditch line.
You would have had blood everywhere else.
Only blood was in that one small area.
Right.
And in the hallway walking in and out. If he did it at his home, maybe we didn't know. I don't know. That one is a tough call. But they walked that thing looking for the knife. Sorry. My thinking is he took it and threw it in the water. You're not going to find it.
Maybe.
That's a lake with fishing. How many knives are probably on the bottom, along with wallets and cell phones and everything else?
Yeah.
You're not going to find it there.
I at that point in time, though, I have a hard time thinking that he's thinking that sharply, but maybe.
It
makes it hard without a weapon. Another small detail that could
was a little
solve
tougher.
this immediately, because if he did cut himself, where did he go when he was bleeding to get rid of it? I mean, yeah, he could have chucked it out the window.
They
Can you imagine
searched.
somebody's walking home from school one day and they're
Find
like, I
this
found this
knife.
knife and solved a murder that was 15 years old.
You know,
or-
I don't know if they
yeah.
used metal detectors when they walked around the ditch line, though. That's the only thing I'm not sure of.
I mean, he could have had it in his pocket. I mean, who knows?
You know, it was just so weird. A lot of people think he planned this for several months.
I think you would have to.
He really did. He just waited for the right opportunity. And that party the night before, because he was showing everybody, oh, I'm happy again. I'm the old Bryon. And they said he was over the top. A couple people described him as manic. And so you start looking at that. He knew what was going on. He was desperate to have somebody go to that movie with him, too. Because normally he would go with Adam Frederick, who was county commissioner.
What movie?
Star Wars premiere, whatever it was.
Ah.
I watched the first 3 Star Wars. I liked them. I just lost interest after that. But it
You
was a
and me
premiere,
both.
and so he talked Mike into going. And it's interesting when Mike was interviewed, he said, I had just a weird feeling. They walked in, Bryon walked to the middle, Mike sat on the end like 4 seats in between. He goes, I just had a weird feeling. And he goes, I have no idea why. And another conspiracy that came up is Matt Ray, of course. Oh, God, this guy is just something. Yeah. But anyways, he made a claim that Bryon met a fireman after the movie at the Village Inn. And, of course, I give Terry Grice credit. He investigated it. Village Inn closes at 10 o'clock at the latest. It was 5 degrees out. They were probably closed at 8. This would have been at 12:30.
Yeah.
And so none of that happened. And they traced it back, and the guy then changed his story. He said, oh, I had drinks with him before that. Well, Mike was at the Winking Lizard. So that story fell apart. But there are so many conspiracies out there. I actually could write a book on each conspiracy because there are just so many of them. They're like hitting a moving target. One
crazy.
Finishes, the next one comes up.
Well, you're gonna have to add a second revised model to your revised edition to your new book next February after. But I appreciate you coming on, sharing
thank
all
you.
the information. You know, for anybody that says, comment with your opinion. What do you think happened? And share it with us. And if somebody wants to come out and talk about it from the other point of view, we are welcome to listen. David, you got anything else?
So your final opinion on what happened to him is?
I was 95% sure it was a suicide. I'm still at about 55%. But that alternate thing that you're going to read about in the book, I can't punch holes in it. And that's what's bugging me about that. I've tried to punch holes in it. I can't.
See, he's got us. You're going to have to buy the book.
That's 2 things.
All right. Well, we'll see it in February. Look forward to hearing you back and hearing how the launch goes. And hopefully it's a big seller for you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
One
Oh.
thing to add, just to the Macron family, we are very sorry for your loss. I know we spoke with a lot of liberty about all the things that occurred, and you know we're natural comedians and everything, but genuinely, we are very sorry for your loss, and we do hope that you find some peace in this eventually.
Absolutely. Good night, everybody.
All right.